Okay. All right. I think we're live on all the. Hmm. Yes, indeed. Shut up, phone. Shut up.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
And we are live. Greetings to our loyal WFYL listeners around the world. Welcome back to your Philadelphia live stream, only on the Freedom Station. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in once again, because you still have the right to hear and the right to be heard. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G. As always, with me are Philly Chris, Russ the producer, and Liberty Lee. And you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters. And you can listen to our program every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So let's be heard. I want to remind our listeners that you can participate in the free and open exchange of thoughts and ideas throughout the entire week by visiting MikeGinTheMorning.com. Tell them what it's called, Philly Chris. I think you have to get off of mute in order to tell them, Philly Chris.
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
That's better. How about you, Russ?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
Liberty there.
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
Paging the other half of the Justice Brothers. What's it called?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
I love it. Check us out. You can find us over on Twitch, on YouTube, on Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, and even the Instant Grams website. All roads lead there. If you check out MikeGinTheMorning.com, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your barber, tell your Uncle Jerry, tell anybody to listen to check us out at MikeGinTheMorning.com. I also want to remind our listeners about the powerhouse lineup we've got here at the Freedom Station. Kick off your mornings with Scott Adams bringing you the Scott Adams Show weekdays at 9 a.m. We've got a brand new program called The Kinetic Faith with Rick Crump, preaching values, service, and order weekdays at 11 a.m. We've got the one, the only Dan the Man Bongino bringing you the Dan Bongino Show weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. We've got Ben Shapiro bringing you the Ben Shapiro Show weekdays from 3 until 5. And finally, we want to welcome him to the Freedom Station family. We've got Michael Knowles bringing you the Michael Knowles Show weekdays at 5 p.m. So don't forget to tune in and show him some love. And with that, you know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hit it, Rod.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
I want to remind our listeners that today's episode of the Mike G in the Morning program is brought to you by Elite Tactical Armory, your firearm storage solution in the Lehigh Valley. Do you know what a commercial armory is? Well, you should. Recently, the Pennsylvania government recognized commercial armories as an acceptable mechanism for off-site firearm storage. There are a bunch of reasons why you might need to store your firearms somewhere outside of the home. If you're headed out of town for a while, if your kid is on probation, if your scorned ex-wife is trying to accuse you again, or if you just ran out of room for all your precious babies, get yourself a unit at Elite Tactical Armory. So visit our friends over at Elite Tactical Armory at EliteTacticalArmory.com or PACommercialArmory.com. That's EliteTacticalArmory.com or PACommercialArmory.com, because it's important to support those who support freedom. And be sure and tell them Mike G sent you. You know, I'm very happy that we've got the other half of the Justice Brothers on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, He is the one and only Richard Sherwood Roberts Jr. Esquire, coming at you live from the Lehigh Valley. Rich, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Always good to be here.
And it's always a pleasure on our end as well. You know, when I was introducing everybody earlier, I said everybody's names. I was thinking about doing something special for the other half of the Justice Brothers. It feels like it's been a while since you've been on the program.
It has been a while. I think you like me anymore.
Oh, you didn't listen last week.
Yeah, great. So the reason why we wanted to make sure we got you on, we had some very important oral arguments for the Second Amendment in the Supreme Court of the United States this week, didn't we, Rich?
We did. The New York State Pistol and Rifle Association regarding concealed carry rights under the Second Amendment.
And you and I were watching that just as if we were watching a football game or a fight, let's say.
I think we were on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Third time this year I've listened to oral arguments. They made it a day. They changed the Supreme Court last year when they did over the phone. They've continued it now this year when they're back to live oral arguments, to live streaming oral arguments. I think it's great.
Yeah. Do you have the Oh Yes app on your phone?
I do, which is the typical way you would get it, but the oral argument wouldn't be posted for at least a week or two after it happened.
It feels
now,
like it takes forever on that app, right? It's like, oh, come on already.
Especially in case I want to hear. Because you read about it for a week and a half. Well, I read about it for a week and a half. Nobody else really reads about it for a week and a half. And then I can't wait to listen to it. Because, you know, when you listen to most of the lawyers there, and I'm sure we're getting to one today that didn't look very good, but most of the lawyers there, they're tops in their profession. Paul Clement, the attorney for the New York Rifle and Pistol Association, who is the plaintiff in the case, is one of the top Supreme Court litigators in the country. And he, you know, they only grant about 80 CRA, and he usually has anywhere between 5 and 10 of those cases. He's argued everything from the Prop 8 case out of California to the New York Rifle and Pistol Association. He's all over. When you hear him do oral arguments in front of the court, it's amazing to listen to some of those guys.
Absolutely. And it's a different kind of lawyering, so to speak. I got to go back to that Oh Yes app because it always reminds me of when I first discovered this thing. And I was like a kid in a candy store. I'm listening to oral arguments everywhere I'm going. Just absolutely fascinated. Not a lot of people can understand this, Rich. I'm sure a lot of our listeners would certainly appreciate being able to hear the justices and the constitutional questions that they attack and the inquiries that they have for the attorneys who are presenting the cases. But I sent it over to a couple of attorneys that I regularly work with, one of whom is in his 70s and one of the best gun lawyers in Pennsylvania. He's been doing this for over 40 years. And so I wrote him a little description of what the app was all about and how excited I was. And at the end I said, yes, I understand that maybe I'm a nerd for getting this excited over this. and he said, this is pretty cool, and said a couple of things. And at the end he said, and yes, you're definitely a nerd.
Yeah. Same boat on that. I love that app. I listen to arguments from, the 60s. I listen to, they have oral arguments dating that far back. You can pull them up on Oh Yes app if they have the video. And some of those attorneys' names you would recognize instantly, and some of the justices asking questions. It's amazing. It's amazing to hear.
Well, think about all the other nonsense people do on their phones these days, right? You've got an app that you look into the camera and it turns your face into a dog or a pony or something like that. Those are the nerd apps, right? Those are for nerds.
That's what I'm going with that. Not the fact that I spend my hour commute to the courthouse listening to the Supreme Court oral arguments.
Right.
Everybody does that.
That's fair. Everybody does that. That's right.
Everybody does that. I'm like, oh,
before we get into the landscape of this particular case, I want to talk a little bit about what it means when you have these oral arguments and some of the difficulties that you might have and the distinctions between this and, let's say, trial, because you've got a lot of people following along on the Rittenhouse case. I think somebody posted in the comments already to say over here. How many times? Okay, so Jeremy says, how many times did you throw your phone while watching the Rittenhouse case this week? So you watch something like that and you see trial lawyers in action. You see the way a trial takes place. Oral arguments are a whole lot different when it comes to the Supreme Court or even appellate courts. Those are less frequently covered by the media and in detail the way they do Supreme Court oral arguments. But nevertheless, you got similar types of layouts going on when you have these appellate oral arguments. So, Rich, I think we should talk a little bit about what their purpose is when they're going before the Supreme Court, because it's something where you don't have each side presenting evidence. They're not putting on their respective cases. And you have the justices jumping in whenever they feel like asking questions, right? So why don't you talk a little bit about what that means?
Well, the basic difference between an appellate court and a trial court is to determine what are the facts. Right? The jury or the judge, if it's a bench trial system, determine what are the facts. At the Supreme Court or at an intermediate appellate court, there are no facts to be determined. The facts are what the facts are. They're, below. They were created by a record below. In this particular Rifle Association case, the summary judgment motion. So they had some limited evidence. They haven't had a trial. They agreed on the facts and they filed a motion for summary judgment, which was granted in the court below, and they expected it to be that way. And what they're doing at the Supreme Court is taking the facts that have been found and applying them to the law as they are going to determine what the law is and how these particular facts fit into the law as they determine.
Who checks the
area.
facts?
Well, that would have been checked at the file court below.
Twitter.
And then in the Supreme Court,
The fact checker.
trying to make a joke. In the Supreme Court, they do what they call a joint appendix. So both sides submit an appendix as the record that the justices will refer to, and they agree that these are the facts. And at a summary judgment motion, the way the case stands in the New York case is the facts are determined. They are what they are, and they go in the direction most favorable to the person who's opposed to the motion. But the basic facts are, in the New York case, is these two individuals applied for licenses. They live in upstate Rensselaer County. The only reason I know that is my wife went to RPI, which is Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in upstate New York. So I told her at oral argument, her university got some pub. But they were denied firearms licenses because they couldn't meet the specific requirements under New York law, which is a particularized need when it comes to self-defense beyond that of a typical person. And the question is whether that regulatory scheme violates the Second Amendment.
So I want to talk a little bit about the summary judgment standard before we do. Before that, let's say hello, give shout outs to everybody who's tuning in and checking in on the comments page over here. CB, how you doing? How you doing? Thanks for joining us. SM Durso's back. Jeremy's back. Jeremy, thanks for joining us. Stax Farmstead, how you doing? How you doing? And we've got Harry. Harry, thanks for checking in. Hey now. Give him a hey now, Philly Chris.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
So with summary judgment, Rich, we've got a standard where you've got no genuine dispute as to any material fact, and that the moving party is entitled to judgment as a matter of law. So why don't you explain a little bit about what that means for everybody?
Well, if there's any real factual dispute, if one side says X happened and the other side says X didn't happen, Y happened, there can't be a summary judgment motion because there's a dispute about a fact that's material to the decision, right? If, for example, in the New York case,
whose job would it be if there were?
Well, the trial court's judge decides whether or not. The first decision on summary judgment is, are there any material facts at dispute, right? Mm-hmm. So the judge looks at usually it's depositions and maybe some submissions in the record and says, are any facts material to my decision in dispute? If the answer is yes.
Sorry, I'm just a little confused. When does Facebook check everything?
Facebook checks everything. Well, all the time.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, Mike G in the morning Facebook page.
There we go. Yeah. We'll put the facts out there.
So I think what I was getting at, Rich, is that if the judge finds that there is a genuine dispute as to material fact, you have to go to trial. And then you've got the trier of fact who will ultimately make that decision, whether it's a jury in a jury trial or a judge in a bench trial, a non-jury trial, that kind of thing.
Right. And if the judge looks at the submission and says there's no dispute, then is the moving party entitled to a judgment as a matter of law? Right. These are the facts. I apply to the law as I see it. Do you win? Do you not? If he does, you grant summary judgment. If not, you deny the motion. Then you end up at trial anyway.
And a lot of these cases ultimately end up as summary judgment cases when it comes to the Second Amendment and is something constitutional. And for example, we were talking about a case that I have in the Middle District of Pennsylvania in federal court, and it's a case where we're alleging that conviction for bookmaking, prohibiting the gentleman from possessing firearms under federal law, is unconstitutional as applied to him, along the lines of the Benderup case. And with that kind of a case, you don't usually end up going to trial and putting on, yes, this guy was convicted, because there's not a whole lot of facts that make a difference. It's just a legal argument that here's what it is. This guy was convicted of this particular crime, and to prohibit him from possessing firearms under federal law, even though he meets the strict definition, strict criteria according to the statute, would be unconstitutional as applied to him. And so it's strictly a legal argument. There's no need for a trial. It's a legal decision to be made by the judge. And that's how practically a lot of these things work out. And that's what we've got over here. Now, I do think that there's an interesting interplay, and maybe you could talk about this a little bit, because a lot of the oral arguments ended up having discussions between the attorneys and the justices about the historical aspect of carrying firearms and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, which is not to temper expectations of our crowd. I think, unlike the Heller decision, presents a more difficult argument for Paul Clement or New York Rifle and Pistol Association, because the way Justice Scalia talked about it in Heller, there was really no history of prohibitions. Effectively, in Heller, what Washington, D.C. did was prohibit possession of firearms in your home. It had to be basically inoperable in your home. And they looked through the history of the United States, both pre, during ratification, post the 14th Amendment, said there's never been a history of prohibition where you couldn't have a gun in your home to defend yourself. This is an absolute right. What you're doing infringes on that right. The issue you run into with carrying outside the home is there is a history, and New York State went as far back as medieval English history in the Northampton decision, where it said that there's always been this history restricting the carrying of firearms outside the home. And how has that history interplayed? Because it was before ratification, during ratification, post ratification, after the Civil War. There's always, states have always regulated carrying firearms outside the home. So it's not that, I think the way the justices are trying to figure this out is some regulation is going to be applicable to carrying outside the home. It's just how much is too much, and when do you cross that line? And that's really where the justices are struggling at this point.
Well, let's back it up a little bit, though, because what I'm talking about is, for example, I think Breyer went down with asking a bunch of these questions about the history, saying that you had one level of history and one, I don't want to call them a set of facts because that's what I'm trying to avoid doing here, right? Think about this.
Right.
But you have one historical narrative that was portrayed in Heller by Scalia in that written opinion. And you're saying that during McDonald, they had a historical professor come in and basically say that all that was wrong. So at what point do those not become facts that need to be decided by a trier of fact? If you've got history, right? If you got this historical analysis that's involved, and you have one side saying this was the history, this is the way it happened, and you got the other side saying, no, this is the way it happened. Doesn't that become a dispute of fact to a certain degree? It's a tricky little thing, right?
It is tricky because it's not when we talk about history, it's not the facts of the case itself. Why was he denied? Was he denied is really the facts of the case. It's the history comes down to what is the law, right? So that's a decision for judges, right? The history isn't the facts. They have to determine how the history affirms what the law is, because the way they look at it constitutionally, you look at the text and then you look at the history because you want to understand what did that text mean at the time the framers ratified it. So what's the best? What did they say? You know, Mike and I have discussed extensively Federalist Papers, commentaries at the time, ratification conventions in the several states or something you look to. Or, you know, what does it mean to bear arms outside the home? Well, let's look at 1789 and we'll look at the states and what were the rules in the states, because it meant something right? But what are the contours of the right to keep and bear arms? Well, let's look around the time, because if they write that, and then in George Washington, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, home states, here are the regulations, you would assume that those particular regulations would be okay and in conformance with the Second Amendment, because, well, they wrote it, and these are the regulations in the state, and they didn't jump up and down at that point and say this violates the Constitution, so we go from there.
I understand that in the legal landscape and the true analysis, it's not a fact in terms of sending it to the trier of fact, right? But what I'm saying is there are disputes among what this history is and what exactly this history means that will never be determined by a trier of fact. Is that fair to say?
That's absolutely fair to say.
There's no standard of proof. It's not like somebody's bearing the burden of proof and there's a standard of proof and they're trying to get it proven, right?
Right.
But at the same time, you got people disagree about it. So it's interesting. It's an interesting wrinkle where you've got something that's technically a matter of law and how they're coming to the conclusion, because they're not arguing about what the law is, right? When you're going back and you're looking at the history, you're not saying this is what the law is today. You're not. You're looking at something in the past, whether or not it took place. That's going to have an impact on the ultimate decision.
That's correct. Absolutely. And the argument over what the historical narrative is important. And the other thing you run into, as we know, especially at the formation of the country, had 13 different states, and probably 13 different states had 13 different ideas of what that document meant. And the issue you run into, and a couple of justices point out, is for every 5 things you find on one side, you could probably find 5 things on the other side.
Right.
So it's a difficult task for them to come up with what is the standard, what's it going to be going forward.
Sort of a similar issue we're dealing with in that other case. You look at how other states treat a particular law when the court's determining whether a crime is quote unquote serious enough to strip somebody of their Second Amendment rights. So as a result, what you often have in these cases is you have what they call surveys of state laws. So there's a compilation of this type of law, because not every state's going to have something called bookmaking, for example, right? You're going to have different laws in different states. Something that always blows people's mind here in Pennsylvania is that we don't have a specific crime called brandishing. A lot of people ask about, what about brandishing? There's no specific crime called, but there might be other crimes where the conduct associated with brandishing meets the elements, but there's no specific crime called brandishing. So with these other summary judgment cases, you got these surveys of these state laws, and there might be disagreements upon those as well. Which crimes are analogous, right?
Right.
But it's not so much a fact to be determined by the trier of fact. It's more having to do with the legal analysis and to be determined as a matter of law. So that's something that you don't see in your run-of-the-mill trial cases, do you, Rich?
No, because in the trial case, you're typically arguing what are the facts, right? And the law at a trial level is not, the law is going to be set to the jury. Here's what the law is, right? Now you have to figure out you've heard all this testimony. What are the facts? Apply the facts to this set of law, and I'll tell you exactly what the law is, and then you make a decision. Here it's like reverse. We have the facts, but we don't know what the law is. The judges are going to try to figure out what the law is.
All right, we've got a couple of shout outs I want to make sure we give. Sax Farmstead has a question for you, Rich. He said, is that the ultimate issue, how much freedom is too much freedom?
Well, the interesting thing is I think Stax really frames the question better than I did in any legal analysis, is really, when you listen, and I don't know if Michael agree, when you listen to the oral argument, they try to figure out where is the line where states are allowed to regulate the carrying of concealed weapons in public. Like, where is the line? I will give some good news. I don't think there's a majority that's going to say the New York regulation is going to stand, right? I think and I'm probably not alone in this, I don't think that's going to stand any scrutiny by these justices. But they're trying to figure out, all right, well, this is too much. But there is some that's going to be allowed. And if you listen to Kavanaugh, Justice Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts' questions, they gave a bunch of hypotheticals to both parties. Well, what if this happens? And the famous one they talked about, what about crowded Times Square on New Year's Eve? Is that a place where you could regulate? Is there too much people? How about a football game, Yankees game? They also talked about the campus of New York University, and then there was an argument whether or not NYU actually had a campus, which, nerds like us, Mike, would laugh about that joke. I thought it was hilarious.
You got over here, got a couple. We got your favorite white boy and All Lives Matter saying, "What's up? Thanks for listening, checking us out." So, Rich, let's go a little bit further into this discussion that they had. A couple of very, I think, thoughtful questions coming from the justices. First of all, let's mention the fact that Thomas comes out swinging out of the gate, right? And that is just Thomas, so totally uncharacteristic of him, right?
It's what's interesting about Thomas, and here's Richard being a nerd, because I just love the Supreme Court. It's one of my pet projects. I'm a bit more nerdy than Mike, so he can go nerd number 2 on this one. But Thomas,
I got a Justice Thomas jersey in my closet.
Well, he's known for not asking questions at all, right? But what they did at when they did only audio or basically telephone oral arguments during COVID, and they just came back live. What the chief decided to do is each person they'd give their introduction to the lawyer, and then he'd call on the justices in terms of seniority, right? When Justice Thomas is the most senior justice, and he'd ask questions at every time. And I don't know if that made him come out of his shell, but now he was going. I was like, oh, I don't know that voice. What is that? Oh, that's Justice Thomas, because nobody's ever heard him. And his big thing wasn't that, and I remember reading, articles and books about him. It's just that he thought the justices interrupted too much, and he wanted to hear what the lawyers had to say. And that's why he never said anything. And I think you can even tell that with his questions, because a lot of them, Breyer, Alito are 2 of the biggest culprits, just jump in all the time. And Thomas is like, these lawyers are here. Let me hear their case, and only ask a little bit of questions. But once he started calling on people, Thomas has opened up quite a bit. But he comes swinging for the fences.
One of the distinctions that one of the justices made, I think it was Kagan, when she's asking these questions, is really interested in the data in New York about who is getting granted versus denied. And the reason wasn't so much, I don't think, her legal analysis on her own volition. I think that she was pointing back to Clement's brief. She was saying that in your brief, you basically allege that unless we overturn this, they basically deny everybody. And you haven't really shown us the support that that's true. Did you notice that?
I did. And that always goes to a situation that we talked about, that they're only here with the facts that are presented and developed in the lower court. And what you'll see in some cases is, we have to remand this. We need to know X, Y, and Z in order to make a decision. And it's one of the things that Kagan asked about was Clement too quick and not develop the record sufficiently enough to really make the argument he wanted to make? And those statistics are important. Well, you're saying everybody's denied. Well, is that true? Well, no. Okay, well, how many people are applying? How many people are denied? Well, we don't know. Why don't you know that? And it's important, especially when you're setting a case up like this, that you have the facts that are sufficient to make an argument, because the worst thing you can do as this lawyer is get all the way up there and go, I should have taken an extra week and develop the record, because I don't have enough facts on the record, because they're not allowed to call in witnesses at the Supreme Court. And now what do? You're back to square one.
There's an interesting response from Clement on that. Said, if we're dealing with, let's say, another constitutional right, let's talk about the Confrontation Clause, for example. When you found out that, quote unquote, only 10% of people were being denied confrontation. We just say, well, that's not right. It's not everybody's being denied. And I believe it was Kagan, if I'm not mistaken. I think you confirmed that. But it was like, no, that's not what I'm getting at. But that's not what your brief said. Your brief made it like they're automatically being denied. And it's basically they're just putting up this sort of facade. The store is a front, so to speak, and that's not really the way it works. I know they put it out there that people can get it, but it doesn't really happen in practice. Did you notice that as well?
Yeah, I noticed that, and I think it was because they had a case and they wanted to get it before the Supreme Court, because I think rightfully so, they have a more favorable court for their particular position for Paul Clement, the New York Rifle Association. They wanted to get it before
I guess we'll see, Rich. I guess we'll see.
Well, yeah, we will see. Based on the oral argument, I think that it's. Let me put it this: I don't think either side is going to be happy with what happened.
Huh.
One thing I can tell you about the Roberts Court, especially in the last, we'll say 3 or 4 terms, is the Roberts Court is known for very narrow decisions, and particularly in this case. So maybe this is getting into the weeds. I don't know if Mike's never going to invite me back after this, but so the way the rules of the Supreme Court, most appellate courts rule when you get to this point. Pennsylvania Supreme Court, I'm most familiar with. I've actually argued there. Is they define the question presented, right? This is the question that the case is designed to answer. Now, typically, when you petition for the Supreme Court, you petition for writ of certiorari is what it's called. You say, here's the question I want you to answer. And then you spend the next 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 pages saying why it's important for the Supreme Court to answer this question, right? This is the question. Why is it important? So typically when we grant certiorari, and the question that we're going to answer is X, as stated by the petitioner. So they granted 80 some odd, 87, 88 cases this term. In this case is the only case where they rewrote the question presented. So Paul Clement's the one who petitioned for writ of certiorari. Basically, his question presented is like, I want to know the scope of the right to carry firearms outside the home for every law-abiding citizen in the country. Right? That was what he asked them to answer. They granted the petition, but they limited the question presented and they rewrote it in its order. And I think it may actually tip how narrow this is going to be. So from that, the specific question is whether the state, that's New York's denial of petitioner's application for concealed carry licenses for self-defense violated the Second Amendment. So what I think that does is it doesn't mean it for all law-abiding citizens. I think the facts that are presented in this case, and I think that's why Kagan was so questioning Paul Clement so much about the fact in his case. He said, do these particular people that you represent, did their rights under the Second Amendment violated by their denial of their application? And why is that? And I think that's the thing goes to. And I think that's why it's important that where the question goes, and that's really into the weeds. And I'll stop talking now because Mike's giving me the high sign right here. Like, you get too in the weeds, people.
Hey, that's not it.
But it's important because it's what happens is people get very disappointed because both sides, my friends on the left will say, they're going to let you know, they're going to say they're going to carry firearms everywhere, courthouses and blah, 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 and then, the friends on the right is the same. It's a very nuanced question is the way the Roberts Court in these big constitutional decisions has functioned especially in the last 5 or 6 terms. And I think what Mike's saying is important about that because it takes 4 justices to agree to hear a case, right? They got to get 4. And most of those 4 justices won't hear that case unless they're pretty sure they're going to win. And I think you may have had 3 that wanted to hear it, Thomas Alito, maybe Gorsuch, but they needed to get Kavanaugh or Barrett or Roberts to jump on. And I don't think any one of those 3 were probably very comfortable with that very, very broad question. So what they did is, because this was relisted, I think 6 or 7 times before it was granted, and I think that's what they were working on. How do we narrow the issue? Because we know where we want to go, but we don't want to blow the doors wide open.
That's always an interesting aspect of it, though, because you have these justices with the ability to turn down cases, so they could very well be in a position where they know in their minds and in their hearts that the issue is important and really needs to be decided, but they don't want to decide it. They don't want to be the ones to put their name on it. And that's a very practical thing. These are human beings that are dealing with these issues, right? They're not robot Supreme Court justices. And I think that happens fairly often, don't you?
I do. I think there's lots of cases that go up that should be decided and defer to the Supreme Court, but they're just a little uncomfortable wading into that at that particular point, or when they wade into it, so we're not, jumping in the lake. Let's start with the puddle. Let's start with a puddle here and see where it goes.
Wasn't there a case with the original jurisdiction in the Supreme Court earlier this year that maybe go into that category? I don't know.
And that came out, Thomas and Alito are thinking that you couldn't turn it down. The majority of the Supreme Court said, we don't have to take those cases. Yeah, so
for those of us who are curious, and I'm speaking in code over here, That was the case that part of where Texas sued Pennsylvania and some of the other swing states. And they had original jurisdiction because you had a state suing a state, and the Supreme Court very clear precedent as to whether it should be heard, not as to which way it should go. I'm not talking about, of course, you're going to have arguments on each side as to which way it should ultimately be decided. But that it had to be decided is something that I thought was very black and white, very clear, and gives me pause when I think about what the result may be on this Second Amendment case, because if they were able to turn that down and simply not decide, there's no telling what they may do. That's really what I got out of that one. But there are a couple of other things I wanted to talk to you about, Rich. One of them, when you're going back, let's go back to the history a little bit, because a friend of the program, Gilbert Ambler, lives out in Virginia, has a law practice over there, and his office is in Winchester, right down the block from George Washington's old office. He worked there when he was a teenager, apparently, and they've turned it into a museum. And he was telling me that you walk through that museum, and there are all different kinds of weapons in that museum, different kinds of firearms. And a lot of them, there are sort of historical summaries next to these different weapons, talking about their purpose and things of that nature. And a lot of them were weapons that were carried at the time, just carried in public by the people down in Virginia, down in George Washington's day. So I thought that was an interesting little piece to be edited in about the history of the way this works, because that was George Washington was around at the beginning, right?
Yeah, George Washington was the president of the Constitutional Convention. He's right. The interesting thing about that history, if you look from the other side, the history is more favorable to open carry as opposed to concealed carry firearms.
Mm.
There are more regulations in colonial history for carrying a concealed firearm than there are for just walking down the street. Which is why I thought it was interesting that they added concealed firearms to the question presented as opposed to firearms. It's a narrowing of the thing. So the history of carrying firearms, it was much harder in those times to carry concealed as opposed to open, because they thought concealed meant you were hiding something, and you were devious. Criminals concealed firearms. It was much easier to just walk around with it on your hip.
But which is interesting, because today I would guess that most anti-gun people would prefer concealed carry to open carry, right?
I just mean it's an interesting fact that was brought out a couple of times, and Paul Clement had to answer that. Yeah, the regulations where you're allowed to carry a firearm in public, most of the regulations were against concealed carry, and if you carry concealed, that would have been the crime, as opposed to walking down the street with.
Right. Do you and this isn't a legal thing or anything, do you think most gun owners, and I know the answer from my interactions in your experience, do you think most gun owners prefer concealed carry to open carry for their own personal preference?
Yeah, in my opinion, I do. I don't see many traditional open carry firearms when I walk around where I live, or anywhere for that matter. Seminars you and Mike and I do, and Mike does, I don't see too many people walking open, and I know probably higher audience has a firearm at that point. But I think it's just personal preference, and times change. So, but I don't ever carry open.
We have something great going on in the comments right now. Biden and Donald Trump are fighting in the comments.
I see some new names in the comments tonight. Great. Welcome to the show.
Let's go,
This is
Brandon.
cracking me up.
You got to put the comments back up, Russ.
Trump shows up and says, "Joe, you're fired." He says, "Where's Corn Pop when you need him?" And Biden says, "Donald, what are you doing here?" Hysterical. They heard that Rich Roberts was going to be on the program, so everybody showed up, including
I bring the crowd. Everybody loves Rich.
Well, you guys have been talking. I've been dropping the link on some of the videos from today from the Supreme Court, trying to bring some new people in. So if anybody came that way, let us know. See if it's working.
Oh, very good.
You got to got the current and former president, so that attracted somebody.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
it worked. Well, I sent something to the White House in Mar-a-Lago, so
You got the email address.
that's right. That's right.
Like, we go by Joe. I don't even call him Mr.
Yeah, I
President.
got him
Joe.
from CB. CB has inside information.
That's great.
No, great content so far, guys. I've been enjoying listening to you. I think the audience has too. Yeah.
So what questions would you have as an outsider looking in, Philly Chris? Because I've got a few more things I want to dive into with Rich. I know we just
Yeah.
talked a little bit about the history. I think it's interesting. That is a good point that he brings up about the open carry, because I don't think that would make very many people happy. I don't know how many people would make happy on the pro-gun side, right? That,
Sure.
okay, you have an absolute right, but it has to be open. I'm sure some people would be like, yeah, well, I'd prefer not to open carry if I didn't have to. And the people on the anti-gun side would certainly not appreciate that.
Right.
I believe that Hillary Clinton said something along those lines during her campaign. Like, can you believe right now you can get a license to open carry? Which I don't think she really
Shows you how
had
much
a
they
grasp
know,
on
right?
what she was
they're
talking about.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, that frightens them. They see somebody open carrying walking up and down the street.
I found it to be geographic. Like when I go back home to visit up in New Hampshire, I regularly will see, not a lot of people, but you'll see folks open carrying a little bit more up there. But it makes sense too. You have more like, rural areas, farmland, stuff like that.
Right.
I tend not to do it from a strategic standpoint, having been through a lot of training and, watching videos online and things of that nature. I feel like you make yourself a target. Obviously you guys know that, but if you're walking around, let's say in the Wawa down in the city, open carrying, and somebody comes in to rob the place and sees you make yourself a target pretty quick. They want to get rid of you first. And even though you can legally open carry in the city if you have your license, I don't recommend it. I've done it a couple times after the Law Shield seminars. I think I told you the story one time in the Wawa when the two police started following me around and came outside and started questioning me, right?
Yeah, it's not something they see every day, so many of them are unfamiliar that's perfectly lawful.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people talk about that, and from a common sense perspective, you'd think that there's some validity to that.
Mm-hmm.
Open carry and becoming a target. If you're in the Wawa, you're open carrying, and somebody decides they want to hold up the Wawa, they look through the window and they say, okay, I got to take care of that guy.
Right.
I shoot that guy first, and then maybe I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Other people say, well, that's a deterrent. They'll pick some other Wawa because they see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of a single incident, and people feel free to bring it to my attention if you know of one. But I'm not aware of a single incident in reality where a bad guy killed the open carry guy first so he can get to everybody else.
That's a good point.
I've never heard of that actually happening. Now, it makes, in my mind, if you're trying to think of what would a criminal think, it makes sense. But I've never heard of that actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, Rich?
No, it's never been brought to my attention on that situation. I just, I always don't want to take the chance of being the one guy who makes the news because they took me out before robbing Wawa. So, I try not to test that theory.
I prefer not to be the first guy, right?
Right. Oh, it does take out the guy. Sorry, Rich. Good
some knuckleheads will be doing a radio program in 20 years, and they'll ask the same question, and the guy will be like, well, there was that Rich Roberts guy over in Lehigh Valley.
Remember that lawyer from Pennsylvania?
Remember that guy?
Used to do the Mike G in the morning show all the time.
The Justice Brother. Oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, see?
We need a Justice Brothers theme song. I kind of imagine it being somewhere like in the style of Shaft or something like that. What do you think, Rich?
Shaft. I don't know. I would pull that off. That would be interesting. Play a theme song when we walk into court.
That would be great.
That'd be awesome. They're like, oh, no, these guys again.
That's exactly what they would say. I noticed you put on the tie today. You put on the tie. You got nice and dressed up.
I did. It's Supreme Court Day. You got to look. You got to look the part.
Chris, you were saying that you have some special ties at home, right?
Yeah, I got a bunch of the holiday ties, Santa ties, Christmas ties. I got a bunch of them from back in my corporate days. Yeah.
I don't have any of those.
Yeah,
And
I'll
I
have
don't believe I will be picking up anytime soon.
I'll have to get you one.
I have zip ties.
What I can say
Should
is
be a gift. I'd wear it on the show.
Okay,
Really
all
good.
right, there we go.
I am the winner of the sock game. Though. I've got Hulk Hogan socks
Those are fantastic.
along with the Ric Flair socks. Ric Flair socks. Nature Boy.
Woo!
Woo!
See, this is why I sit between Mike and the jury when we're in court, because they do not need to see the Ric Flair stuff. I'm like, we're not paying attention. What's on his? Nothing. They're just shoes, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
You don't remember my closing state when I was like that? I'm that jet flying, limousine riding, diamond ring wearing, Rolex wearing, kiss stealing son of a gun.
Hey, whatever works, man.
I think they would
Hey,
love it.
listen, and we got a not guilty, so I don't care what he says. We're
Mhm.
good.
That's right. That's great. So, Rich, let's talk a little bit further about this Supreme Court case and ultimately where we think this decision may very well go. I think that if let's say we were betting on this, right? You've got so many sports
Ooh.
betting places right now. I don't know. Can you bet on Supreme Court decisions? Is that?
I'm positive. Listen, you can. This is America. You can bet on anything. Okay?
Oh man,
Your
We should've-
client with the bookmaking, you could probably ask that particular individual. Does he take odds? What's the spread on?
the Supreme Court. Yeah, what's the overrun?
Hang on, I'll check.
Oh, we got
over.
Hulk Hogan in the comments now. He says, "Well, let me tell you something, brother.
Oh no!
That's great.
What you gonna do when the Justice Brothers
What
run
is it
wild
called?
on you?"
The 24-inch pythons. I remember that.
That's
That's
right.
awesome. Oh, that's
So,
good stuff.
If we had to make a prediction about where this case is ultimately going, what the decision will be, I think it's safe to say we're not going to get constitutional carry. Do you think that's safe to say? You think it's safe to say that the Supreme Court's not going to say licensing in and of itself is unconstitutional? And this is a constitutional right. The government can't sell your rights back to you in a form of a permit or anything like that. But we're not going to see that, right? If you had to bet money?
You may get a concurring opinion that says that, but I can't imagine any scenario where the majority opinion of where you get 5 of those justices to say yes, you have an absolute right to carry a firearm outside the home any way you want to. Second Amendment guarantees that. Good luck, world. I couldn't imagine that there would be 5 justices on the court. There may be 2, but you need 3 more.
Jeremy says, yes, you can bet on Supreme Court decisions. You know a guy, Jeremy?
They know a guy.
Yeah.
Next thing he's going to give us odds, and that's what we're going to do.
There we go. There we go. So I think that we could both agree that if we were betting, we're not getting constitutional carry based on this particular decision.
I put a lot of money on no if anybody would take that action.
Okay, well, maybe Jeremy's guy will take the bet.
What-
right?
what-
Hey, Jerry's out taking action.
What's Hulk Hogan think?
Brother, 20,000 leagues under the sea is a nice place to deposit somebody, brother.
I love all of our new listeners checking us out. They're like, these guys talk about the Supreme Court and Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Those are the 2 best things that go hand in hand.
I
Apparently.
know, right?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that matches better except for maybe peanut butter and jelly.
Of course.
Russ, the producer, ladies and gentlemen.
Of course. So, Rich, I think that a lot of our listeners, while they would be pleased with the Supreme Court decision that the Constitution demands constitutional carry, I don't think many of them were expecting that decision to come from this case. Do you?
I don't know. I think once they saw Heller and that was an individual right to keep arms in your home, I thought there may have been some hope. But I think that was even, like I said, with the way they presented the question and the way they limited it, I think you could have tipped your hand a little bit before that. We weren't going to get that decision.
Well, let's poll the listeners. Why not? Why not? Let's ask our listeners what they think about this. So the question number 1 is, did you at any point expect the Supreme Court to rule in this decision, basically in stating nationwide constitutional carry, meaning you don't need a license in order to carry a firearm concealed on your person? If you're in the comment section, let us know. Did you at any point believe that the Supreme Court would issue a decision that would mandate constitutional carry throughout the United States? And tell us yes if you did think so, no if you never thought that was going to happen. Yes if you did think so, no if you thought it was never going to happen. Let's see what happens here. Polling the audience.
Choices are yes or no.
Polling the audience, like who wants to be a millionaire?
Is that your final answer?
Yes or no?
Answer. Final answer. Yes, if you at any point thought the Supreme Court would issue a decision mandating constitutional carry throughout the United States. No, if you never thought so. No, if you are not on drugs.
Say no to drugs, like the Reagan era.
We've got nobody. I think maybe people. No. KPK says no. Never expected that. CB says no, not under this administration. Oh, that's an interesting addition there. Durso says no, didn't expect that to happen. Miller says yes. Miller says that maybe he did think that the Supreme Court.
Miller will take that action. It looks like
Miller's going to take the action. Maybe he's got his own operation going on. Area 51 says no. Liberty says yes, was hoping so under Trump. Now, just let me make this clear. I'm not talking about federal legislation that would require reciprocity nationwide. I'm saying, do you think that the Supreme Court would render a decision that would basically say that licensing schemes in and of themselves are unconstitutional? You can't require a license to carry a firearm. Dave Cressman, veteran Dave Cressman, hey now, says no. Dave Cressman, attendee of many, many U.S. Law Shield seminars, thoroughly familiar with myself and Philly Chris and Richard Roberts. Educated citizen says UFOs are real. Thanks for the input.
Hey, we got Area 51. That's
just in
good.
case we asked.
What's going on there?
Okay, Rusty says I'm saying yes because Rich is putting money on it. And since he could be wrong, I'd like to take a lump of money.
There we go.
I like
There
that
we
one.
go.
That's a fair point. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have people who said a mixture. Some people said yes, some people said no. Okay, so Rich, I guess here would be the second option if we're going down. The court could ultimately say that you can have a licensing system, but it can't be what you got right now. Because as somebody who lived in New York City all those years, I don't know what the statistics are exactly. I don't think Clement knew. But if you're talking
Clement
about the
definitely
city
didn't know.
particularly, that's got to be 1 in a million people get it, right?
I would assume so. It'd be nice if Mr. Clement, who's one of my favorite lawyers in the country, would have developed the record a little better if we'd have an answer. I think it would have made his case a little stronger, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Oh, so Jeremy says, I think if you're not currently in prison, you should be able to carry whatever you want. That's a different sentiment, though, than whether you thought the Supreme Court would mandate that and issue a decision that makes that the law of the makes it the law of the, I shouldn't say that, but interprets it as the law of the land, right? Effectively, practically speaking, that's what it would do.
Right.
You got to be very careful and precise about what you say.
That's true.
So then we've got, but like New Jersey, for example, that one I do know off the top of my head. You've got 8 or 9 million residents, fewer than 6 people who have what they call a permit to carry over. That's a very, very small percentage, right?
That is correct. It's very, very small.
Yeah.
In practice, that's not even, that's like barely may issue, right?
It's not
Right.
even really the United States, though.
Right.
Can we call that the United States?
Well,
It's like mostly not issue. So
Yeah.
how far? So that's really what it's going to come down to, or what it could very well come down to. Where do you think they'll land, Rich?
so I think the land is close to a shall issue as you can get. And the reason I say is this, is a lot of the analogy, even Kagan and Sotomayor, traditional liberal justices, have said the standards in New York, the real true problem with the standards in New York was there was too much discretion for a government official. And Kagan asked about half a dozen questions to the Solicitor General from the state of New York about, wait a minute. So it's up to the official on whether, in what other context of a constitutional right do we do that? right? You know, and then she said, well, there's permitting requirements for the First Amendment. And Kagan said, well, yeah, but you could say you're allowed to have a parade at 10 a.m. in Central Park to protest whatever you want. If the protest is at 10 a.m. in Central Park, you don't got to go, well, what are you protesting about? Yeah, I don't know if I want you to protest.
Yeah,
No,
you don't really need to protest
No,
about that. You don't
it's-
really need to protest about that.
It's you check this box, you check that box, you get the permit. That's it. Whatever you're doing, the government official just goes, I got 3 boxes. Yes, yes, yes. You give them the permit. And I think you're going to get something to that effect. Like, you're qualified to purchase and possess firearms. You in Pennsylvania to pass a PICS check, you're good to go. The good moral character is another one. I think there may be some limitations on that. Although Alito even seemed to strike approvingly about the good moral character, which I think is up for some issues. Mike and I have litigated several cases where it's a good moral character, I think is a problem. But I think you're going to get very close to a shall issue across the country, that you're allowed to regulate. I think sensitive places will hold, like courthouses, prisons, and things like that, post offices. You're not going to be able to get a right to carry. But I think that those may issue states that you see, and there is only about 7 of them, according to Clement's oral argument, I think those are going to cease to exist. Because I don't think
along lines of First Amendment time, place, and
Correct.
manner restrictions, right?
Right, and I think that is really where you're going to get at. Like, you're allowed to have regulations. This is not a go do whatever you want, but it's in favor of exercising the right, because people are going to have a right to carry these weapons subject to reasonable restrictions as they're defined. And then they'll say reasonable restrictions, and what the Supreme Court always does is doesn't really tell you what that means. And then Mike and I will be litigating what reasonable restrictions are for the rest of our career.
Right.
And that's really what happens.
So that's true too. I like what you brought up about the whole moral character thing, because you've got so many cases here in Pennsylvania with the license to carry scheme dealing with character and reputation. In some counties, the sheriffs just say, listen, if you pass your PICS check, you're good to go. That's what we need. Then you get other places that really abuse this discretionary factor. And you're not within one of the criteria that's presented under 6109. And they say, oh, well, but you did this, and we've got evidence of this, so we're going to deny you based on character and reputation. And ultimately, we've seen some pretty egregious things over the years, just so people understand, because they say, well, why is it such a bad thing that they got some discretion? Well, because discretion gets abused. That's how it works, right? So it gives somebody a little bit of power.
Mike's famous case in Philadelphia, the guy had his gun stolen, the safe where his gun was stolen, out of his house, revoke his license on a character and thing. Wait a minute,
ridiculous.
Couldn't be any more safe than that. That's literally what you want people to do. He's supposed to stop people from breaking in, and it's just what do you do? So, I mean, in those situations, it gets abused, and I think you get a series of almost, I don't know if it'll come out in the opinion, but all 9 justices would agree, when you're talking about constitutional rights, when you give government discretion on how you're supposed to do things, that's where the issue becomes. And then it was an interesting thing about Paul Clement. One of the things Kagan crushed him on was he talked about something about, well, you can always then go to Congress. And Kagan jumps in and goes, well, isn't the idea of a right you don't have to go to Congress to ask? I don't know really what the Congress thing is. And I was like, yeah, that's actually the point. The right, you don't have to go say, hey, government, can I please do this? No, that's not the way it works. But I think you'll get, I think it'll be a whole lot easier to get concealed carry permits or licenses or whatever they're called in the particular states throughout the country after this. I don't think it's going to be the complete constitutional carry, but I think it'll be a huge step forward in the right direction.
What other things fall under the character, situation? What have you guys seen that you've had to dispute or deal with? Like, what types of things do they try to use?
Most of the time, we're dealing with something like a criminal case that was dismissed, right? Or even criminal charges that are not prohibiting in and of themselves, but they say, oh, well, we think that does show character and reputation.
So in the justice system, where we're not supposed to use those things against you once they're dismissed or whatever, they're using it against you, basically.
Well, here's the way the courts made the distinction, and there have been cases that have talked about this in Pennsylvania. What they say is that it's not the conviction or lack thereof that they're using against you. It's not the case itself that they're using against you. It's the conduct that gave rise to the case. And if they can independently prove using the lesser standard that's required in this licensing system,
Okay.
if they can prove that same conduct, then they can meet that burden.
Okay.
Now, they have to almost put on a mini trial, right, Rich? We see this all the time where we object to hearsay, so they got to try to go and get these witnesses to come back in for something that was already dismissed.
Wow.
But practically speaking, what happens to a lot of folks is they'll get denied and they'll just give up at that point. They won't continue an appeal and try to bring it. And we've had cases where people try to go to these hearings on their own, and they get stomped by by opposing counsel, and they didn't object to anything, right? They didn't get all these things onto the record.
Yeah.
So there are issues with that. If you ever do have a license to carry denial, get counsel right away. Don't try to do it on your own. Unfortunately,
that's
cheap is
true.
expensive in these situations, right, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We've run into too many people who've been denied and they're upset. And usually it's, I should have hired you guys before. And I go, well, yeah, I mean, now we're just digging out of a bigger hole. I mean, it's not that, we're not out here to shaft you. I'm just telling you, it's difficult. And when you don't know what you're doing, and it's not that you're dumb or you're uneducated or anything like that. It's like, you don't know what the law is. You don't know what the burden of proof is. You don't know what to object to. You just don't know what you're doing. Right? It's not that I'm any better or worse than you or any smarter than you. It's just, this isn't your area. This is what I do. This is what I get paid to do. It's what I do from, as Mike says, the time I wake up till the time I go to bed. Right? And I usually ask, what do you do? Guys like, I'm a plumber. I'm like, well, yeah, and you don't want to come hire me when your toilet's leaking because what I'm doing is flood your house. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna flood the house. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, I got some Drano. Did that work? No. I'm like, that's what I got. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
Plunger maybe? No, nothing.
Sometimes.
All right.
Sometimes.
Well, you want me to? I can't do anything about you to help you there, but it's important to get legal representation, not because you've done anything wrong. It's just you want somebody who knows what they're talking about when you go into these things.
Mike and I've heard too many stories too where it ends up costing more in the end when they go that route to try to fix it, and it makes it harder. So yeah,
of course,
yeah.
Absolutely,
inevitably. And Rich, Philadelphia really puts you in a strange position with the issue you just discussed, the character and reputation, and the gentleman whose gun was stolen. They stole the safe that was in his house, and his gun was in the safe, and he reports it like a.
It's crazy.
He thought to be what a good citizen would do, right? That's what he thought. He thought, hey, I should report this, and they revoke your license. And if you report a lost or stolen firearm, it's automatic in Philadelphia. License
in Philadelphia, they're coming the next day. Right.
That happens when people's cars get broken into as well, and they're stolen out of the car, right?
Automatic. Yeah. Automatic.
In Philadelphia, that's automatic.
And so here's
the
position they put you in. They also have an illegal ordinance on the books in Philadelphia that requires you to report lost or stolen firearms within a certain period of time. Just saying you must legally do this, and then we're going to take your license away, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
They've got an illegal ordinance and then an unreasonable policy. So you're getting it from all ends in Philadelphia.
And you're getting penalized when a crime is committed against you.
When you are the victim.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's absolutely right.
I'm sorry. This makes me angry.
Well, now I will say that we want to take whatever measures we can to secure our firearms. If you are leaving it, let's say, in a vehicle, right? You don't want to make them easily stealable, so to speak. You don't want to make it so that people can get it. If nothing else, because you want to keep your damn guns, right?
Yeah, they're not cheap.
They're mine.
Yeah, I usually leave mine on the dashboard in my convertible, It's easy to get to when I get back.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So we've got a couple of new listeners tuning in, getting in the comments. Somebody asked, what is the channel about? I said, gun rights and the good old US of A, all patriots welcome. Is that a fair description, Philly Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And we get into some other topics as well pretty regularly, I think, Current events.
Aliens,
UFOs, Russ the Producer, Liberty Lee.
Fashion tips, right?
Yeah,
fashion tips with Richard Roberts.
Wrestling, Hulk Hogan.
That's what I'm
Hulk
here.
Hogan.
80s wrestling references.
Yeah, exactly. We do it all. One-stop shop. Whatever you want to talk about, throw some topics at us.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about, Rich, they discussed a whole lot rural areas versus urban areas and population and things of that nature, which that's something that's always driven me nuts to a strong degree. And the reason is, grew up in New York, where densely populated, and the government's decided that because of that, it's not safe for you peasants to own firearms. You know, you can't have guns because there's just too many people around. And then you go out to a place like Oklahoma, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Of course, good people can have guns. Of course, you have the right to protect yourself." And they really talk about this, and the attorneys who were defending the law were talking about this like this is gold over here, and this is their fail-safe way of winning, because you're just making things so dangerous if you introduce firearms into highly populated areas. Did you notice that this argument was very prominent?
I did, because I wasn't aware of the exact license agreement in New York, but apparently it's supposed to be. That's why they give local discretion, is because individuals in upstate New York are probably pretty easier to be able to get a license to carry a concealed weapon than it would be if you lived in New York City.
But when you start to think about it, it all falls apart because they try to provide sound reasoning for it. They're saying, oh, well, if you're in a rural area, you're more likely to need it. And I think it might have been Alito who was saying, well, you're not really running into anybody, right?
Right. No, Alito's famous quote that actually made me laugh, and that doesn't happen too often, is he asked about illegal firearms in the subway.
Oh, yeah.
And there's lots of illegal firearms in the subway. And then the response from the solicitor for New York said, well, yeah, there's a lot of legal guns, but now if we let legal guns in the subway, there's even more. Right. He was like, wait, hold on a second. Wait. Yeah. So and then Kagan even jumps in and goes, hold on a second, wait a minute. So you're saying you have a lot of illegal guns in the subway, so we shouldn't allow legal guns in the subway because there's too many illegal? Kagan's like, I don't know where you're going with this. And Alito's like, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
It was actually worse than that, because the attorney started off by, talking about how dangerous it would be if people had guns on the train and everything like that. And Alito's like, well, aren't there already guns on the train? And the attorney was like, no. And he was like, well, don't you think, how many people had firearms illegally confiscated in New York last year? How many illegal firearms were confiscated, taken off the streets by NYPD? And she was like, I don't have an exact number, but I'm pretty sure it was substantial. He said, okay, so you got a substantial amount of legal guns on the street, and you don't think that they're on the subway? And at first she tried to say no, and it's like, wait, what? Oh, no, they wouldn't bring guns on the train. They're not monsters.
Yeah. That's the only place gun control. It's the only place gun control works.
Mike, they stop you.
They stop. They're like, oh, wait, no. Listen, I still got some self-respect. If I'm going to carry a gun illegally and be a criminal, I'm not going to do it on the train. Either that, or maybe they've got some kind of aversion to the train. Like, they just don't take the train in general. So it's either the criminals have decided they're not bringing guns on the train because that's just too far, they've crossed the line, or they just don't like the train at all, so they just generally stay away from the train. Both ridiculous arguments. Yeah, right. So finally she can see, okay, maybe there are. But the next argument became, okay, well, if there are already illegal guns on the train, and then we let legal guns on the train, there'll be more guns on the train, and that's not good. Like, oh my goodness!
It makes you realize how much they don't think about this stuff, though.
So it's preferable to have fewer guns, but only in the hands of the criminals, right? Than to have more guns, with some of them being in the hands of law-abiding citizens who what about doing it legally? That's the contention being made here, right? Yes, absolutely. Makes sense to me. I got no further questions.
Now, the solicitor for New York, and she was not very good at all. I don't know who argued after her. I don't know if it was somebody from the United States, from the Solicitor General's office. But Paul Clement, who argued first, is just going to be top-notch no matter what. The third attorney, I don't know who he represented, was great. The solicitor from the state of New York was, she was not very good. She just wasn't very good. If you're making arguments like that, I'm like, did you practice? I'm like, I don't.
I
mean,
figured I'd show and go.
I figured like, I'll wing it. It's just the Supreme Court. I go every day. What are you talking about? So, I mean, that's where we're at. So, I mean, yeah. What I think we're going to run into in this particular situation, like I said before, is I think you're going to have pretty close to a shall issue jurisdictions in all 50 states. And we're going to get subject to reasonable restrictions, as usually, because, courts love the word reasonable. And then, like I said, lower courts are going to have to figure out what a reasonable restriction is, which is good, because then Mike and I will be talking about our own cases instead of the Supreme Court case, because we'll be getting phone calls from law-abiding citizens who get denied based on a reasonable restriction. We'll figure that out. But that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. What are the biggest mistakes folks make out there? What are most of your calls about, Rich? Like what guidance?
I think one of the things that I give to people who make mistakes are, one, if you're ever unsure about whether or not you can purchase and possess a firearm or obtain a license to carry firearms, you should call an attorney.
Right.
Who can do an investigation, because making mistakes, and people think it's just a mistake. Oh, I really guess it wasn't allowed. After all, it's not the way it works. You're going to be charged with crimes. One of the biggest things, and I had an individual call me the other day who knew my brother about carrying a firearm, and he's like, I want to get a license to carry. I had one before. It got, it didn't get revoked. He lost it. Comes back in, and he's go, what's it? He has a simple assault, wasn't a felony. Can he get a license to carry? And I go, all right, well, a simple assault in Pennsylvania is an M2. That's generally not prohibiting. I'm like, but you know what? Let me look up his name. I was like, what's his name? He gives me his name. What's his date of birth? So I look it up, and I go, hey, do your guy have a drug paraphernalia conviction from a couple years ago? He says, yeah, but it's no big deal. It's an ungraded misdemeanor. The issue there is, I said, unfortunately, your friend is ineligible to get a license to carry, because any conviction in Pennsylvania under the Drug Device Act makes you prohibited from a license to carry. Doesn't make you prohibited from possession and purchase, but a license to carry. So in that situation, just because he knew my brother and he knows I deal with this, he got, I should have charged him for that. I should tell my brother he owes me a check. But it's important because he could have went there, filled it out. I'm like, oh, not a big deal. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the sheriff's office is calling him, the local police department is going, hey,
it's crazy.
Come here, let me talk to you. And all of a sudden he's got a felony and misdemeanor charge just because he didn't know.
Right.
And we find that out, especially with the license to carry, because there's plenty of people who have stupid charges with a small amount of marijuana or drug paraphernalia, which, you get a fine, do something like that, but that prohibits you from a license to carry in Pennsylvania for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I've heard so many horror stories, from folks and from Mike, sharing things with me about how many people have gotten themselves into hot water for not realizing, It's too bad that the gun stores don't have a way that you could soft check it somehow, even if you paid a fee. Has there ever been any talk of something like that?
I don't know.
Talked about it for a long time.
Yeah.
Talked about it for a long time. There was a guy, I was doing a Law Shield seminar. I forget where it was. It was one of the gun stores. And the guy came out, and I'm walking. He's talking to the shelf. He's like, I got this thing. What do you think I should do? And I'm sitting there, and he goes, oh, there's an attorney right there. I'm like, wait a minute, what? I'm trying to get some water. I'm on a break. He's concerned. I'm like, no. Don't fill out. He's like, I think I'm okay. I'm like, no.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
What's that? Isn't there a commercial where like pretty good isn't good enough or something like that? Pretty sure isn't.
Yeah, he goes,
and you got felonies on the line. Pretty sure is. Roll the dice. Here we go.
Right.
He goes, what's the worst that could happen? I'm like, felony and jail time. But I mean, if you're all right with that, have at it, buddy.
It's how many people
unfortunate though. A lot of people will say, well, then I got to pay an attorney to look into this and do an investigation. Well, yeah, or you can possibly be wrong and then pay 10 times that amount to go to a felony jury trial and maybe go to jail.
Right.
So
might as well just do the background check then. Yeah.
Right. Pay me now. I mean, this is what's going to happen. You do it, and if you're right, great. But if you're wrong, you're going to come to me like, hey, you should have just paid me. Because one, it's probably cheaper.
It's totally not in our interest to be recommending investigations financially, right?
Right. I know they're cheaper.
If we were all about the money, we'd be like, yeah, just give it a shot. Yeah.
Shot.
Probably
We'll have
fine.
new boats by next year, right? New boats. Me and Rich will be out in our new boats.
Yeah, a lot less for the investigation. And then if you're,
Hmm.
Felony
Yeah,
jury
people-
trial is
people-
absolutely blowing up, right?
Yeah.
yeah. So
Mm.
So what do you think? Rich, growing up, you've got sort of an interesting upbringing because Allentown's the city, right? And then, but you're in Pennsylvania, so it's gun friendly, and you got a lot of rural areas surrounding Allentown. So a lot of places you go, and I know it's becoming a little more built up in certain areas of the Lehigh Valley, but you still have a lot of places where there's a ton of open space.
yeah, I mean, traditionally, Allentown's in Lehigh County. I've never had an issue or anything with getting a concealed carry license. I literally, the last time I got it renewed, I did it while I was in court because the sheriff knew me. It's right across the second floor from a courtroom. I filled out the application. Said, "You're going to be a while?" I'm like, "I'm in front of Judge Anthony." He's like, "How long is it going to be?" I'm like, "I don't know." I was like, "Just come back." And I come back an hour, and I come back an hour. "Hey, Rich, here you go. Bye." And that was the end of that. So, I mean, that's really, I haven't had too much problem around here. I think it's because it's not like the city of Philadelphia where the county of Philadelphia is just the city. And there's a good mix in the Lehigh Valley of urban and rural areas. So they can't be as strict as they can in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you this. When you hear them make these arguments about rural versus urban, everything like that, just instinctively, how do you take all of that? Or what do you think? What's your response to that when they say, "Oh, well, it should be a little different in these locations versus that locations"?
Well, I can't imagine that being a fact because the right is what the right is, right? And that's my issue. Whether it's an urban environment or rural environment, the right is what the right is. I don't care if you live packed like sardine cans or there's 1 acre house. I mean, the right is what a right is, and it applies equally across the board. And that's the issue you run into with that distinction. So I think the way you'll have to deal with that is if you can determine, based on the argument, what they call a sensitive area. I think one of the people you think about as a courthouse, prison, something like that. One of the things they said is a time, place, and manner restriction. I think look at it like that. Times Square, New Year's Eve. There's literally 1 million people within 2 blocks. They're like, yeah, you'd probably be able to say, yeah, you guys can't come here. Or, Yankee Stadium for the World Series where there's 70,000 people on top of each other, even though that's a private area. And that was something that Paul Clement mentioned. But he's like, in situations like that, you may have it. But just living in a densely packed city, that's where you live. It's not a special event kind of thing. A sensitive area can't be a city where people just, have residences.
The entire city is a sensitive area.
Do you, though, then I have a quick question regarding that. Like, do you then create a gun-free zone that could then, bring terrorism and things of that nature? Unfortunately, we see that with the school shootings. Just to kind of
well, do you think that if they do go this way, that the anti-gun places, their response is going to be to just throw so many different, like every single place becomes a restricted?
Yeah, because
right?
Where do you draw the line, right?
You just make legislation the size of a phone book, right? You just legislate this. These are all the areas you can't carry: coffee shops, tea shops, bagel shops, donut shops,
gun stores.
Well,
everything.
I think you try to. Well, both sides do that. When you have a constitutional right, where are the limits at, right? How far can we push this before it's too much? And then when it comes to this, I'd like them not to act that way. But anytime there's a constitutional right and it's defined, and courts never define things perfectly, there's going to be litigation about it. So I'm sure Mike and I will be quite busy defining what's a sensitive area. So, I mean, I don't welcome that, but I mean, it's just, unfortunately, it's the way our system and the law works. Is there's a law and it's never quite written as perfectly as it should be.
Sure.
Because if it was, I'd have to go to medical school and so would Mike, and we wouldn't be lawyers anymore. And I mean, it's unfortunate because people want, black and white. And you usually get that. We do seminars. Black, what can I do? What can't I do? Yeah. Well, if everything was black and white, I'd have to go to medical school or be a doctor or a dentist or a teacher because I live in the gray areas, right? So, I mean, unfortunately, there's always going to be gray areas. We just hope that we do the right thing and expand the right as much as we can,
Sure.
and keep fighting a good fight, so to speak.
Absolutely. Well, thanks
One
for
other
what you guys
option
are
that we
doing
haven't discussed so far. We haven't discussed the possibility that the law just stands.
here.
Yes, you're right. That's absolutely
Or they could duck the issue altogether.
Duck the
Couldn't they
issue.
completely duck this?
so.
This
Right. So I don't think the law is going to stand as it is. I don't think there's 5 justices that will hold that way, especially the way New York does it, which that may issue and good cause and something more than a typical person just sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. However, Mike does make an interesting point. Could they duck it in a way that says the record isn't developed full enough that we need more information before we can make a decision and order a remand for further fact finding, and then it comes back 4 years from now? That's a possibility. I think it's quite low, to be honest with you, just because it's going to come back to them. And do they really want to just wait another couple of years? And, don't they want to make something and then get it off their plate and have lower courts figure it out? Which is why I think you'll get the narrow ruling. You're not going to get a broad sweeping ruling. You're going to get narrow that has some contours they don't quite answer questions to, like Heller. Right. And then there's a whole bunch of lower courts interpreting Heller. And then I think they'll bring it back up, 5, 6, 7, 8 years when there's enough discrepancy and we need to, let's pin this down some more.
That's a good point. I just wanted to make sure that we discuss all possibilities, maybe not probabilities, on this program. And just one final thing on this, Rich. Do you think that it's fair to say that regardless of where you live, you're in an urban area or you're in a more rural area, that there are reasons to be able to protect yourself, and you shouldn't necessarily have to show that the bad guy's got an appointment to come get you on Tuesday, because basically you got to wait till it's too late with their system.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, New York's regulatory scheme is absolutely insane and just an affront. And the interesting thing about it is that regulatory scheme has been there for over 100 years. Which I didn't know until I listened to the arguments. Over 100 years old. And I sit there and go, that's insane. So it's not just self-defense. It's self-defense beyond a typical, I need to protect myself. And I go, wait, what? What does that even mean? Right? And then Alito and a couple of justices are like, so there's been a whole bunch of robberies. Well, they haven't robbed your house yet, is one of the things. I go, wait, what do you mean they haven't robbed? Well, if they robbed my house, that doesn't mean what do I need it afterwards? They already got my stuff. Like, I don't know what that means. So, I mean, it is an affront. And I think the reason they did New York, maybe New Jersey would have been better, but the reason they did New York is because that language beyond the typical person, it just strikes anybody when you're talking about a constitutional right. Even the people who may not be the friendliest on the Second Amendment go, there's something wrong about saying that. Like,
you have to be special. Only the special people.
Right. Even those you'd think would be on the left side of this issue, the liberal side of the Supreme Court, were even like, well, wait a minute. I don't know if we do that anywhere else. You guys are, I don't know. How did you guys get away with this for so long?
Yeah. Well, I think what it is, Rich, is that a lot of people in New York don't leave New York. You live in New York City, you really don't leave for all that much. I mean, you go a couple of hours north in New York and you're like, oh, that's vacation, right? You go two hours away on vacation for a week. Right. And people don't go other places. We don't go across the border to Allentown and don't realize that the rest of the country is very different than it is in those 5 boroughs. I think a lot of people have no idea. And maybe it's something you talk about 100 years ago, you didn't have, Bubba from Oklahoma on TikTok talking about how he's got great gun rights out there, and people in New York looking at it like, wait, what the heck? He's got it. How come he can have it and I can't? Right? So things have changed a whole lot, and really in these last 10 years with social media, people seeing the way other people live in our country, just in other states outside of those boundaries. I think that's got to have something to do with it, that people start to realize this.
Yeah, because you see people live differently in other places. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I in particular had no idea that you had regular, good, law-abiding citizens that had guns all over the place. Growing up in New York, that's just something that's totally foreign. And any of our listeners in the audience who are from New York would probably have just about the same thing to say. You might have known plenty of gun owners, just no legal gun owners.
Right.
Right.
So, Rich, you got any parting words? We don't want to keep it too long. I know that Richard Jr., little Richard, gets ice cream on the boss tonight, right?
He does get it on the boss, and that's me. So I don't want to hear about it. Stop throwing that out there. Keep trying, Mike. It's
Can
all
I
right.
ask Rich one question before you go? I don't know if you have a hard cutoff or not, but I was just wondering if you've been following the Kyle Rittenhouse case at all too.
No.
I've seen it's going to be it's going to be a tough case. I mean, they're going to prosecute him. The jury, I would not want to be on that jury because that's going to be a tough decision.
Right.
He certainly was carrying a firearm underage, so he's probably guilty of that. That's an absolute thing. But a famous quote from a famous judge that I had when we were dealing with a case in the county, the gentleman who was certainly not allowed to have a gun but used it to defend himself, told the jury asked the question, if he's illegally carrying a firearm, does that mean he can't defend himself? And he said, whether he's carrying a firearm legally, he doesn't have to let anybody kill you. And that's the bottom line. And we'll have to see if he's justified under, I don't even know what state he was in, whatever the law is there, which is different.
Right.
So, I mean, that's going to be a situation. So it's a tough case. We'll see what the defense, because we only heard one side so far, which is always interesting. People jump up and down. They go, well, we've only heard one side. Let's see, the witnesses that the defense has to produce. The opening statements were interesting. I've listened to some of those. Obviously, I had two different ideas of what's going to happen, but we'll see. I, as a trial attorney, have as much as I can in our jury system because it's the one we have, and usually I hope that the jury makes the right decision.
Sure.
Based on the evidence.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah, with what we saw, if you read the criminal complaint, I forget if they call it an affidavit of probable cause out there, but when you read the charging documents, essentially, even if you accept everything in those charging documents is true, if that's not self-defense, I don't know that there is such thing as self-defense in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mike shared those. I'd agree with them. I mean, I'm sure there's more than that to the story that they're going to get into, but yeah, Rittenhouse has a good case to start with. It's just, we'll see what the other witnesses say. There's other witnesses. The video doesn't look good for him, but that doesn't tell the whole story. So, the fact that there's another firearm involved, which is certainly helpful for him. He was chased, he was beaten, a couple of times, which is very helpful for him.
Kick to the head.
Yeah. I mean, the problem you're gonna have is a skateboard versus the AR-15. I think is what the prosecutor is gonna make out there. So, but I agree with Mike. Obviously, a skateboard head kick to the head, I think, is enough. But again, I'm not on the jury. Yeah, it definitely could. Yeah. But I think so the problem is people who don't know the AR-15 is a big, giant, scary gun, and it's not really.
That's a good practical point there.
Yeah,
good practical point.
Well,
there,
guys,
so
I heard the AR-15 is extra black and extra shooty.
Right. Well, the problem is when it's the most popular rifle in America, right? There's more of those sold than anywhere else. So to us, they're like, well, it's an AR-15. My brother's got 3 of them. I don't know what the big deal is, but the way the prosecution will portray the AR-15 is it's this big, scary assault rifle designed to murder tons of human beings, and it was that versus a skateboard. And it's maybe I'm thinking too much like a defense attorney. How do I counter that?
Sure.
I think you got to bring in some firearms experts in those things. Talk about how popular the AR-15 is, because they're going to say it's this big, giant, scary gun. I mean, it's just I'm thinking of it as a lawyer. What am I doing as his defense lawyer?
Well, plus with the political environment right now, you have to look at it that way. Yeah.
And you have to, and unfortunately for him, that's against him. I mean, and the
definitely
political environment is definitely not helpful. We had a local police officer on trial for homicide for a shooting that happened outside of Dorney Park, and it was right before the trial literally concluded 3 days after they shut everything down. Right? He was acquitted on the homicide charge for killing the guy in the middle of the street. And the judge in that case asked the jury, hey, they're shutting everything down. Do you guys want to go home, declare a mistrial? We'll do it after everybody's safe. The jury pushed through, finished it. And I said, and then, the George Floyd situation happened. The police things happened. Attitudes have shifted, away from believing the police at all times at this point. I think maybe too far, but, I'm a defense attorney, so that might be helpful for my practice area. Right. But what I said is like that officer locally has to thank a lot of lucky stars that those jurors wanted to stay and finish those cases. Because I don't know if that case happens after COVID, he gets the same result. Because it's not always just the facts; it's what surrounds it, and that could have been a problem. So, yeah.
No, good point.
But I mean, I see what happens. I'm not there. I don't know. But I mean, I agree with Mike. From the criminal complaint and the affidavit, if that's what we call it in Pennsylvania, if what he did isn't self-defense, you got a real problem in that state for what is self-defense.
Right. Absolutely.
Great stuff. We've got Richard S. Roberts, ladies and gentlemen, the other half of the Justice Brothers, the one and only. Thank you for joining us, Rich. Go get your kids some ice cream.
I am. Have me back again, unless you're gonna, not invite me anymore, Mike.
Oh, of course we'll have you back. We gotta have you back more often. That's what we gotta do. Maybe we'll do these. We gotta make sure that we do updates, not just when the Supreme Court talks about a Second Amendment case, right?
That's true. We got to do the updates in general. Got to talk about all the good work that we do for our law-abiding gun owners.
That's actually a great idea. I mean, because we're in court together every single week.
Yeah.
And it's not like we be on here telling war stories.
Yeah,
we could.
Let's do it.
I'm sure you want to get to other topics.
Sounds good.
Maybe next time. It's great to see you
Rich.
guys.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Get a little Rich from ice cream on the boss, which is Mike G. You're kicked out of the show. I got him, right? I didn't give him a chance to respond.
Right, that was good. You took him out, man.
That was great.
Hopefully I'll be able to add him in the future since you kicked him.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So, Russ, we've got a new video that we will be releasing on YouTube. I wanted to air it on the program, premiere it here. And it was edited, thankfully, by the one and only CB. Thank you for your contribution. And want to show this to our listeners because I'm sure this is going to be a topic of discussion for the remainder of the program, something that's fresh on everybody's mind. So Russ is going to go ahead and pull that up. Let me know whenever it's ready, and we can go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, CB. Shout out to CB.
Hey now.
Hey now.
All right. I believe I have it ready.
Oh, and just so everybody knows, this is the first time that we are seeing this. CV
yes,
said
that's right.
We're going in blind. So if CV puts some wild stuff in there that we're unaware of, I cannot be responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't get us kicked off YouTube.
It's a serious video. Everybody needs to listen up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay then.
We trust CB. That's what that says.
All right, quiet on the set.
Quiet on the set.
I'm Jose with Philly Firearms Academy.
I'm Mike G from Mike G in the Morning.
I'm Philly Chris from Mike G in the Morning. A lot of us were sad to hear about the firearms incident that took place with Alec Baldwin on the set of Rust.
We obviously don't have all the information right now, and we don't know that anything we say today would have prevented this incident from taking place.
What we do know is that it's a good reminder that we need to follow firearm safety rules every single time we handle a firearm. Treat all firearms as if they're loaded and capable of causing death or serious bodily harm, and always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction.
While it might be difficult or impossible to film a gunfight scene in Hollywood while observing every single rule, there's no excuse to ever break any firearm safety rules in your everyday life.
Guns can be fun, but we can't forget that when mishandled, they can be dangerous. When safety rules are not followed, people die.
Never keep live ammunition anywhere near or even in the vicinity of training rounds or dummy ammunition. At Philly Firearms Academy, we go to great lengths to make sure that not even one single round of ammunition is anywhere near where we're doing training simulations.
Just because you disagree with Alec Baldwin's politics doesn't mean you don't care about what happened.
Just because you didn't mean to hurt somebody doesn't mean you didn't break the law.
Just because you're anti-gun doesn't mean you shouldn't know the rules of firearm safety.
Knowledge is power.
Just like ignorance of the law is no excuse, ignorance of firearm safety rules is no excuse.
It'll never hurt you to know, but it may hurt others if you don't.
The right to bear arms is a fundamental right protected by our Constitution.
And with the most important rights come important responsibilities. Nobody wants to see anyone innocent get hurt or killed.
So get as much formal training as you can and learn from a qualified professional.
And whether you know those rules,
or will learn those rules,
follow every single rule every single time.
What an ending. That was fantastic.
Crazy.
Great
man.
beginning, too. Nice job, CB. Thank
Wild
you.
ending. Yeah. I like it.
Nice, CB.
I think that we need to
Fantastic.
definitely thank you, CB. Yeah, let's all give him. Oh, Harry helped as well. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Harry.
Shout out to Harry and CB. Yeah, thanks, guys. Really, really good.
Oh, it was. I think that's important. We got to get that out there. We'll be posting that on YouTube tomorrow, and hopefully everybody who's listening will share that with their friends and their family and their loved ones and people they don't even know, because I think that's a message that should get out there, because this is something that's on everybody's radar. Everybody saw what happened. I don't think anybody is happy that somebody died on the set. And even if you don't like Alec Baldwin, listen, somebody who wasn't involved got killed, right? So somebody who wasn't him, no matter how much you don't like him, I don't think that anybody wishes him dead.
Right.
But regardless of the way somebody feels about him, this other woman who got killed, I mean, what did she have to do with that? What did she have to do with all the nonsense that he's spewed over the years? So even though we're not exactly sure what happened and everything's ongoing, and he made some statements on the side of the road this week.
Yeah, I have that video in the doc in case you wanted to play it. But yeah,
okay, yeah, go ahead and play it. We're on the topic.
Yeah,
Russ, the producer, let's go ahead and play it.
It's the third one down, Russ. I think some of this doc stuff got moved down, but. Yeah, it's interesting how he was on the side of the road there talking, but and I do feel for him, really. I'm glad you mentioned that, Mike, because the way things are now politically and so divided, you see some pretty horrendous comments online, especially with the pandemic and the COVID. But at least here on the show, I know nobody,
Emilio says, great video. Thank you, Emilio. And again, thanks to CB and Harry.
Yeah. That's good. I want to watch it again.
That was the ultimate PSA. It put all of Russ's PSA to shame. Sorry, Russ.
Your fave white boy says ending was epic. I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
That was a nice surprise.
I'm glad we didn't watch it in advance.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise. And I like that none of us had seen the video before we watched it live on the air. So whatever our reaction is, we're going to be able to go back and look at that, and it's totally 100% genuine.
Right.
Yeah.
I like how it kind of lightened up a serious.
Your favorite white voice is very important message. Thank you. That's definitely, we want to get that message out there while this is fresh on everybody's mind. It's a good opportunity to remind everybody that, bad things can happen and they're irreversible. You can't put that bullet back in the barrel, can you?
Mm-hmm.
So
tragic. Yeah.
Russ, do we have that Alec Baldwin video?
Alec Baldwin video. Which one would that be?
It's in the doc it looks like some of the doc stuff got moved down. It should be page 6 now, I think it is.
Page
under
6.
My video link section under Philly Chris.
Page 6.
Should be.
Why would you put it on page 6?
I didn't. During the show, some other things apparently got dropped in the doc. It was at the top, but either way, it's on page 6 now if you're looking for it.
Great.
That's the one that comes after 5 and before 7, right?
That's the one,
really?
Mike. That's the right one.
I found it.
Yeah. Mike has it.
Alec Baldwin? Here we go.
Yeah. Should be the right one.
Oh, wait. Maybe if I did that on the right computer.
Yeah, Thanks, Russell.
So we got some people in the comments still talking about the Rittenhouse case. Supposedly, one of the jurors made a joke about Jacob Blake.
Oh,
Didn't
yeah?
see what it was and got dismissed.
Yeah, the jury selection has to be interesting there. Problem is,
Rita's
it is
here.
sort of
Rita
hard.
says, "Hey guys, just getting on now." Hey now, Rita.
Shout out to Rita.
Did Rita get the
Hi, Rita.
notification? I wonder.
Says
Or,
the video
or is
was
she just
good.
late?
New folks in the chat tonight, which is exciting. Where are folks from? Where's everybody from?
Yeah, tell us where you're from.
Where you from?
Tell us where you're from, because we've got people listening from all over. We had somebody message us on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Tell us
we never got that the guy to come on the program. I suppose I just realized that, right?
Which one?
The one who's having the rally over in Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Remember that?
Yeah.
We never got in touch with that guy.
You guys ready to see the Alec Baldwin thing?
Yeah, go ahead. I
Yeah.
do want to make sure we at least talk about this, though, because we were supposed to try to. I don't know, Chris. You want to try to get him on? Give him a call
Baldwin?
after we watch after this segment. After we watch this,
Yep.
you have the number.
Was that you emailed it to me? Was that the one you emailed?
The number for
Have
Alec
Liberty
Baldwin?
send it to me.
Let me know when to hit play, you guys.
Yeah, it says you opened it up 8 hours ago.
Go ahead.
It wasn't
Russ,
in the
play it out.
dock 8 hours
Do it
ago.
live. Do it live.
She was my friend. She was my friend.
Alec Baldwin on camera for the first time since the deadly movie set shooting in New Mexico.
I'm not allowed to make any comments because it's an ongoing investigation. I've been ordered by the sheriff's department in Santa Fe. I can't answer any questions about the investigation. I can't. Let's go.
In an impromptu interview, the 63-year-old beside his wife Hilaria telling photographers the Rust production will not continue, calling the tragic death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins one in a trillion.
There are incidental accidents on film sets from time to time, but nothing like this. This is a 1 in a trillion episode. It's a 1 in a trillion film.
The actor-producer sharing his concern for Hutchins' family, saying he's talked repeatedly with her husband.
He is in shock. He has a 9-year-old son. We are, in constant contact with him because we're very worried about his family and his kid. And as I said, we're eagerly awaiting for the sheriff's department to tell us what their investigation has yielded.
The encounter at times intense and even awkward.
Excuse me.
Baldwin shooing his wife away at one point.
You guys, you know what? No details.
Do me a favor. I'm gonna answer the question.
The famed 30 Rock actor fired the deadly shot, according to authorities, after he was handed a prop gun mistakenly with a real bullet inside. The assistant director yelling "cold gun," meaning it was safe to use. Still, Baldwin defending the production.
We were a very, very, well-oiled crew shooting a film together, and then this horrible event happened.
A characterization in sharp contrast to what others on the ground have recalled. A source familiar with the matter saying some crew members walked off set shortly before the shooting over safety concerns. But Rust Movies Productions having said previously, we were not made aware of any official complaints concerning weapon or prop safety on set. Baldwin now turning his attention to a broader look at change in the industry.
So what has to happen now is we have to realize that when it does go wrong, and it's this horrible catastrophic thing, some new measures have to take place. Rubber guns, plastic guns, no real operants on set. That's not for me to decide. It's urgent. It's urgent that you understand I'm not an expert in this field. So whatever other people decide is the best way to go in terms of protecting people's safety on film sets, I'm all in favor of, and I will cooperate with that in any way that I can.
The Baldwin family parting with this plea for privacy.
My kids are in the car crying.
Emily just joins us from Los Angeles. Emily, do we know why Baldwin decided to speak now?
Jose, several photographers have been staking out Baldwin in Vermont. The actor ultimately called them over and said he would talk in the hopes that they would then stop following him, his wife, and their children. Jose?
It's certainly a lot nicer than I would have been.
It was a little strange that he said, I can't answer any questions.
Then
at all.
explaining
Yeah, I was going
himself.
to ask
Let me
you
stand here.
what you would tell him to, if he was a client, what you'd be telling him. Right
Shut
now.
up. His wife was telling him to shut up, and he pushes her aside. He's like, oh, no. It reminded me of that scene when you were in that movie, Chris, when you were playing the lawyer.
Yes.
And the reporter comes over to the bad guy that you're
Right.
representing, and he's like, you're like, no, we're leaving. We're getting out of here. We've
That's
got to
right.
get somewhere. He's not making any statements today.
Yeah,
And
the
then
lunatic.
your-
The lunatic.
Yeah. And then your client just says, you know what, Angelo? I think it's about time I talk to the media. And he just says all these completely damning things about him. It's just horrible. It's a train wreck, an absolute
Right.
train wreck. That's a very common
You do see it.
scenario.
You see
in
it
real
too
life.
much. Yeah.
Very common scenario.
Mhm.
Where, Russ, you always say everybody's got the right to remain silent, but they may not have the capacity. Is that what you always say?
Yeah, not everybody has the capacity. And I think, you know what? I think he made a good point as far as something has to change as far as using real guns, because there's no reason a prop gun should be able to take live ammunition. Do you agree with that or no?
I think that there are people more qualified to talk about that. I can say that when you're looking for a very specific look, it may be very difficult to replicate that, you know?
Right.
You're looking for something that's authentic. It might be difficult. Now, I know that Jose was telling me that Glock makes these training firearms that are incapable of expelling a projectile, but otherwise they're spot on, and they make them for training purposes. So potentially something like that. I'm not sure if those are capable of firing blanks, though. Right? Are you going to have that same look? Are you going to have the recoil?
Right. Yeah, it is really unfortunate. It's sad, but this whole cold gun thing, it just seems like a bad procedure too. I mean, we were all taught, we've all been through training that obviously every gun is loaded. Doesn't matter. I mean, I sort of see it's slightly different.
How do you
You're talking
film
about a movie.
how do you film a gunfight?
Yeah.
I wanted to say,
But he should have checked it, I guess, is my point. You have to check. He should have.
Should
as the
everybody be
individual holding
checking
it.
themselves?
Right.
Yeah,
It should
check
be a
yourself
no
before you
point
wreck
of failure.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a
Jeremy says, I
pilot.
disregarded gun safety, so now we need more laws for everyone else because if I could do something so stupid, everyone else is dumber than I am, so they need more regulation. Yeah, that's
well, I have a.
I'll agree with the everyone is stupid part.
I tried contacting him, but no answer, unfortunately. But I'll look into getting him on for a future show, Mike, just so you know.
Alec Baldwin?
Yes. No, Justin.
So
Justin
Dwayne The
Baldwin,
Rock
Yeah.
Johnson, he put
Unavailable?
out a tweet.
Justin didn't answer if you were asking. What were you saying about the
Did you
Rock?
send him a text?
No, let me do that. That's a good.
Yeah,
idea. Let's
because
try
he
that.
might be like, oh, who's this weird
Sure,
Pennsylvania
probably.
call?
Yeah, probably.
Just tell him, hey, we have a last minute opening, and we can get you on if we can call you. Yeah, because we got the
Hollywood's-
number, right?
Yeah.
Hollywood's just going to
numbers in
ban gun
The
movies.
telephone number is in the doc, Russ. So make sure that doesn't go on the screen. It's on the very top of the doc.
Okay.
And I'll give everybody a little bit of background. What happened was this gentleman contacted me, and initially he thought that we were out of South Carolina for some reason.
Yeah, you said
Just
that.
listening to the program and thought, oh, do I sound like a South Carolina guy?
Yeah, Mike, you lost your Yankee accent. Now everybody thinks you're from South Carolina.
That's definitely a South Carolina accent. Right? You hear that he's like, oh yeah, that guy's born and bred. He's the real deal. And so let us know that they were going to be having this rally. It's a vaccine mandate rally at a high school gym in Irwin, 700 South Mohawk Drive in Irwin. Live music. Basically what happened was nuclear fuel services and armed guard unions request your support as they protest the vaccine mandate. Please stand with fellow Tennesseans as they face a January 3rd deadline that could end their employment. Stand for freedom. So if you're listening and you're anywhere in the area, please be sure to go ahead and check out that rally. Unless maybe this was a troll.
What's that? You think so?
I don't know. Because Chris is saying that the number's not working.
It went to like a voicemail or something.
Okay.
But it didn't have a name or anything. It was like a, yeah. But I'm texting him now. Let's see if he gets back.
Okay.
Skype says the number that you gave me is invalid. Do I have to type a 1 before it?
Don't call him yet, Russ. Don't call him.
Then what'd you give me his number for?
Because Chris is trying to get a hold of him to see if he's available to do the program. Don't just call him and put him on the air.
Where are you when you're doing the show?
Yeah, all right, serious.
Where are you? Where have you been? Did you listen to Mike?
He's got his head up his butt looking for the teeth that Billy Chris knocked down his throat.
It's awfully cold at the North Pole. It slows neurons down.
CV says, I wouldn't be surprised if Hollywood will start to go with CGI firearms and ban prop guns.
That wouldn't
So I
surprise
wanted
me
to
at all.
say, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson put out a tweet recently that he's pledging to stop using real firearms on all projects produced by his company. $7 production. We're going to switch over to rubber guns, and we're going to take care of it in post. We won't worry about what it costs. So I guess what he's saying is that they're going to put all the action in post production.
Who's this?
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh.
That wrestler guy. Because all wrestlers are actors
And
now.
Well, you know, another option, and you brought up a good point about the replicas, Mike, versus a real firearm. You could always have an armorer disable them by taking the firing pin out, you know, and then making sure 100% they're not capable of any type of, you know, round discharging, even if there was one in there, and then somehow they could use CGI. I mean, the amount of money.
Is the choice really between 100% real and gun made out of licorice? Is that like all we can do?
right. Like there's
Well, no,
no in between here. Come on.
You know what? I'm gonna one up this one.
block?
I'm gonna one up you guys. All right. So instead of having even guns made out of licorice, okay, they just hold their hand in the shape of a gun and they say bang, 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 bang. That's gonna be gunfight scenes in the future movies.
Phoebe, I heard that one. That's a good one.
Like Mr. Bean.
Yeah, well, you know.
CB
but
says,
again,
go woke, go broke. Guess I'll be watching foreign films. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Dwayne Johnson came out and supported Biden in the last election, didn't he?
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, he's just he's catering.
I don't
right
think
now.
I've watched a movie with him since then.
Nope.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to like him. He's got a pretty good story with his success and you know all that, but yeah, it's political.
Well, they're trying to
beliefs
show
of-
what they do during tragedy. I mean, I can't help but think that that's, you know, when something happens with Republicans or the NRA, they're the first ones to go out there and not really extend as much grace, right? A lot of people on the right are extending grace to him, even though we don't agree with him, right?
Yeah.
And I don't see that on the left when tragedies do happen, right? You know, I don't see that same sentiment and that same grace.
No, you don't deserve it.
Right.
Well, it's like the COVID stuff too. People, you know, being happy about people getting COVID or dying. It's like you look at the comments on, you know, Facebook, the Mega Universe, Delta variant. You know, what are they calling Facebook now? What's the new
It's called Meta.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. The Meta.
Because I guess they wanted to shave the baggage of Facebook by calling it something else.
But you know, these social media platforms have turned into just.
They're the
comments
keepers
are
of
people.
So is
information.
Facebook no longer going to be called Facebook?
Right.
I thought it was
No.
company.
Hang on.
They'll still have Facebook, but the company itself is going to be called
The company.
Meta.
So basically, the way that it works is kind of like how Alphabet owns Google, owns YouTube, owns Gmail. Google created that a while ago so that I guess they could be owned by a parent company. They could expand. So Google by Alphabet, YouTube by Alphabet, except, you know, they use Google because it's more well known. Facebook is going to keep its name, but it's going to be Facebook by Meta. WhatsApp was bought by them. It's going to be WhatsApp by Meta. They're basically just doing I don't know. I guess they're going to say, oh, well, you don't trust Facebook with your data. Facebook doesn't actually own any of that data. It's Meta now. Metadata.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more to it.
I'll have to change that graphic that I made with the Facebook with the angry face and the demon smile and holding a gun at somebody's head. I'll have to change that.
Meta now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Their logo. Let me bring up their logo. I'll just give it a Google search here. It looks like the symbol for infinity. It looks like that, except ravaged by time and just all full of sag. Like a saggy infinity sign.
Saggy infinity. I guess they're making it like an M, but because it's sort of like an M, but
yeah, but I think McDonald's took all the good M's, and they can't use the one from Microsoft.
No.
Dave Cressman is right. A gun safety course would help. And CB's funny. He blocked The Rock.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Go woke, get blocked.
Yeah, CB brought up a good point too about Brandon Lee. I remember that incident. You guys remember that? Bruce Lee's son.
Durso talked about John Eric Hexum playing Russian roulette with the.
Oh yeah, right.
I think what that was about, if I recall correctly, it was the concussion of the firearm hit him in the temple and killed him.
Yeah.
Talking when you were a kid, they said, if you just stick your knuckle out on your finger and hit somebody in the temple, that could kill them. If you ever had if you were ever in a life or death situation.
I've done it a few times.
I personally am a fan of the Vulcan neck.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that on the air. No.
No, that's because you're a knucklehead.
That's right.
Knucklehead.
Hey, Chris, I'll take a knuckle to your head.
But yeah, certain places
I
you
think
hit
that's
people.
what that was all about. And then, what exactly do you remember the story with Brandon Lee?
I'd have to look it up to really remember the details, but I do believe it was a on-set firearm that had a blank of some kind in it, I think. And because a blank can kill you. I mean, it's still an explosion. And if you're that close, like we just talked about, unless somehow a live round got into that, I don't recall. Maybe CB remembers if CB wants to throw it in the comments there. Or we can duck, go it.
He said, that's it. I like that you're saying that.
Right. That's right.
Instead of the G word, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'll look it up now.
We can duck it.
But do you get what I'm saying, though?
Duck
Like,
it,
you
we'll
guys
do it
put out the PSA because you genuinely want people to do the right thing with firearms. And a lot of times with the left, they use the tragedies to push legislation.
A lot
you
of
guys
times?
are consistent. What?
A lot of
You
times?
guys are consistent, and that was kind of my point. Well, every time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, it seems
Like
to be a different reaction depending on which side is dealing with the unfortunate situation, right?
Right.
The unfortunate circumstance.
It says prop gun in this article, but how could it have been a prop gun? That doesn't make sense.
In what? Brandon Lee?
Lee landed his breakthrough role in the 1994 film The Crow, where he unfortunately passed away during the movie's production. Brandon Lee, 28, died on March 31st, 1993, after being fatally wounded on the set of The Crow by a prop gun. How could a prop gun fire something? So maybe there's a
CB says plastic from the blank went through him, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that could happen, right? That's what I remember, it being a blank, but the charge, and that can happen, Obviously, it's still an explosion. So just the pressure alone, like you said, Mike, that close to your head could probably blow a hole in your head or cause
I even heard
concussion.
even a little bit of powder or like residue that can cause it, right?
Mm-hmm. Says a mishandled prop gun was used during the scene, and due to crew negligence, a blank round was fired at Brandon with almost the same force as a live round.
Huh.
So I don't know why they'd be using the prop gun. Maybe certain prop guns can fire blanks. I don't know. Have to research that. That's interesting.
Bang.
Yeah.
Either way, it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
So what else is going on? I guess we should one more time let everybody know. Is there any way we could Google this? Nuclear fuel services and armed guard unions, Tennessee. I used the G word, Chris.
Yeah, you did. I was just gonna say.
Just
I
habit, right?
I didn't want to throw you under the bus, but I was like, you just did it.
We should make the equivalent of a swear jar, but for the Google word.
I need a big tech companies.
All right.
We're like Pee Wee Herman. Remember when he had the show? And it's like, this is the word of the day. Whenever you say this word, everybody's got to scream real loud.
Right. Yeah, we could do that.
We used to
should
do
have
that in
Pee-wee-
high school.
Pee-wee on
It sounds
sometime.
ridiculous now. We used to do that in high school, though. Like before a teacher would come and be like, all right, word of the day is.
Uh-huh.
And then everybody would be sitting there quiet. And once the teacher said something, everybody in the class, "Ah!"
What would the teacher do?
They would look at us like we had 9 heads.
Right.
Some of them would laugh. Some of them would, that's not funny. And of course, the less funny they think it is,
Oh,
the
yeah.
more funny it is.
Yeah.
And the more we're going to keep doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's funny how a few teachers understand child psychology.
There's one teacher, this lady, what she would do is she would try to figure out what word it was that she said that caused it. So she'd go back and like say a couple in a row.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Like
That's
say
funny.
one word, then the next word, and wait till we
Right.
got it, and then she knew she had to stay away from that word. She was pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Nothing like cool teachers. Yeah.
I don't know. She doesn't want to be associated with a conservative talk radio host, so I won't mention her name on the air.
Oh, is that right? Is that right?
I don't know. I mean, a teacher in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember ever discussing politics in her class, but
Yeah, right.
It's over for you, Mike. Everybody's gonna know
every-
which way you swing now.
Oh yeah. It's too late for me.
Yeah, it's too
Wait,
late.
Mike's a
It's too
conservative? What?
He's just it's just an act on the show that you should see his liberal ways in real person. Yeah.
I know, right?
He's just hiding. He's grappling with his inner self. His inner
Mike
left.
G is just a character of snowflaking things. Snowflake is the real guy. Snowflake is the real guy.
This is Sammy the Socialist coming at you live on the Mike G Show.
Sammy is the real guy. Hey, why don't we go ahead and show for anybody who may have missed it, Russ, why don't you, on our YouTube channel, the video that was released earlier today with Philly Chris.
I put it in the doc for you too, in case you needed it, Russ. It's
Oh,
right
In
above.
case
the-
you can't, Russ, in case you don't know where to find us on
He was
YouTube.
literally just gonna say that, Chris. He was it's not on the dog.
And in case you don't know where to
Yeah.
find this program that you're producing every single week for the last however many years on YouTube.
We love you, Russ.
It's not that I
He's
don't know
low.
where to find it. It's that you guys don't know how to put things
Just-
in the doc.
Oh,
Things
now
will
it's
show.
perfect.
No.
We're
Things will
just-
show up
please.
in the doc. I don't even know what I'm looking for. Is it on page 6 again? Because I'll
Yes.
never know.
Please play the video.
Like you guys
Amazing.
put things in the
Perfect
doc and it's
note.
labeled for next week, and it's like, oh, that's for next week. Was it listed on
I
this
know,
week?
I know it's so difficult to find the last video that we posted on YouTube just a few hours ago.
You know
I know
what?
it takes a real rocket scientist to figure this out. But just bear with it. Give it your best shot. Russ.
I'm gonna do a video about Russ, the producer, soon. Coming to YouTube soon.
It's called Philly Chris on the Street premiere. Remember when you found that Alec Baldwin video that we watched? It's 2 above that.
Yeah. So Mike
Oh,
knows where it is.
okay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna use your website, MikeGinthemorning.com, to find it.
Yeah.
No, you could also do that. Very good. You have been paying attention on this program.
Hey, shut up, Mike. And then
You're listening to Mike G in the morning with Russ, the producer, Liberty Lee.
alleged producer.
Yeah, we're gonna
right.
put producer
That's
in in quotes from now
Air
on.
quotes. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what's crazy is I've got the video up on my screen right now, and
Shut
I've had
up,
it up.
I brought it up 7 times. Since
You
we
know
started
what?
Talking about it, yeah. There we go. There we go. Can people see it?
I can't see it now. Russ,
It is playing on the YouTube. I can see it.
Is this a Let's Go Brandon film?
That's right. Yeah, if you read the credits, you'll see some funny stuff in there, I think.
Great.
Hey, look,
Love
Mike G's live.
Mike G's live right now, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in.
So I know that we premiered that on YouTube, and we want to give Chris a little bit more background on what's going to be coming up with that series and things like that.
Yeah, thanks, Liberty. Yeah, we've talked about Kensington several times on the show, the fentanyl problem that's going on in the country. And having lived in the area for quite some time, I've had the opportunity to go over to Kensington over the years and kind of see what was going on over there. And, obviously we've talked about it on the show. So I decided to go over there again and do some filming and talk to some folks, which I haven't actually done over there. But it was interesting. Yeah, I came across a couple people who were willing to talk to me. After I spoke to the first gentleman, that other couple actually came and found me. They were like, "Hey, are you doing interviews?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just down here trying to understand what's going on, talk to some people." And they're like, "Oh, we'd like to talk to you." So I thought that was interesting because I feel like from talking to them that they do feel abandoned, and I have about 20 minutes worth of footage. I'll be working on that behind the scenes to put something together for the show where, we can hear from them in their own words what they're dealing with and what's going on over there. So, but, to me, when we look at like the pandemic and all that stuff, like this is a real crisis. This is legit, horrible stuff going on over there in our city. So let's learn from it, see what we can do and go from there. So we'll be presenting some additional footage coming up soon on the show.
Yeah. Great. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
SM Durso in the comments says two things. First, Quant supposedly is another one similar to DuckDuckGo. And second, when Russ is looking for the video and can't find it, says use Control F and a keyword. Durso,
See, the
are
thing
you
is,
available for hire?
the thing is, they don't use words. They just put a link in there.
Than Russ, the alleged producer.
Right.
So, Durso, are you available?
Ladies and gentlemen, producer SM Durso on the show next week.
We'll pay you whatever you want.
Yeah. Hey, let's go, CB. Let's go back. That'd be cool.
CB wants to go back.
Yeah. I did do it with my phone. I've thought about, it'd be so cool in a way to have higher quality footage in a film crew, but I have seen over there, and I've actually done just a little bit of filming from my car, and sometimes the people will yell at you and stuff. Because, number one, they're, I regularly see people self-injecting and people injecting each other, and of course there's dealers walking
lots
around.
of illegal activity going on.
There is, yeah, and
They don't
dealers
exactly want all eyes on them while they're doing it.
Every time I've gone over there too, I don't know, for some reason I look like a cop. Even this time, a couple people ran from me, and you hear them. They're like, "Cop, cop," or they'll say, "Undy," and I'm like, "I'm not a cop, guys. It's totally cool. I'm not a cop. I'm just."
People think that with you all the time.
I know. Yeah, it's happened for.
They either think you're a cop or you're in organized crime.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah. A little bit of both, but neither.
It's like you're never just a regular guy, right?
Right.
You're
Hey,
never
Chris.
a regular guy or a regular job.
Have you considered becoming a cop, though?
Chris got confronted by Antifa, but I was so impressed with his skills to de-escalate the situation. Not many of us could have done that. So he's really good out there. Like, he generally wants to speak to people and talk to them, and because he loves the city. So I just think it's going to be a really, really good series.
We should watch that video sometime, Chris.
It's on my Philly Chris YouTube channel.
Oh, is it? With
you could pull it up now if you
the
want.
Interaction with Antifa?
Yeah, some of that. Yeah, it's on there. Yeah. If you did want to play, it's on the Philly Chris YouTube. If you want to take a look, Russ, if you know where YouTube is.
We'll have
What's
to wait
that
till
on the
next week
internet
when
or
Durso's
something?
the producer.
HTTPS :
We'll have to wait till next week when we have Durso the producer on.
That's right. But I appreciate what you said, Liberty.
As
Thanks.
always, with me are Philly Chris, Durso the producer, and Liberty Lee.
That's too funny.
Yeah,
Come on, laugh, Russ. You gotta laugh.
I was laughing. My mic wasn't on.
I think it's
you
important.
got to lose your job. Remember that song? Does everybody know that?
Yeah, I
song?
remember that.
You gotta watch that one.
Mm.
That one will get stuck in your head all day, though.
That was funny. Yeah, that went viral pretty good. It's funny how certain things will go viral. Well, the Let's Go Brandon stuff. You know, look how quick that took off.
I think that went viral because it was so obvious. What was that?
You about to lose your job. You about to lose your job. Get this ass. You about to lose your job because you are detaining me for nothing. You about to lose your job.
We're gonna get copyright struck.
What is that?
We're gonna get copyright struck because of you.
Oh, are we?
Probably.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We need sound effects for Russ.
We're commenting on it though. We're it's a
commenting.
commentary about it, right? We're not using it commercially to enhance the program.
Mike,
we're saying
it genuinely doesn't matter when YouTube
it
is the one in charge.
It actually does, Russ.
It actually doesn't. We found this out when you tried to dispute the COVID thing.
Yeah, and won twice and lost once. Yes.
Yes.
Mike's a lawyer.
If you're not too lazy to ever appeal, then yes, you win some of them.
I did appeal. I appealed when we were getting strikes on the WFYL channel. You didn't appeal these.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I appealed them. They said, "Oh,
that's why you lost."
did." No, Mike.
That's why it's not. That's why it's no longer a thing. Go ahead and find the Philly Chris video. Get back to work.
Jeremy Miller's asking, "Where's the link to the Philly Chris?"
Yeah, why don't you put it in the chat where I can actually click on it and it's
Yeah.
actually in
All right.
front of me rather
Hold on
than
a minute.
6 pages down.
Let me see if I can do some producing for a minute here.
I'm very confused, Russ. You don't know how to get on YouTube.
That's okay. It might be.
No, you guys don't add
I
these
follow
things ahead
Philly
of time,
Chris on
and you
my-
ask me to do it on the fly.
I haven't done much with the channel really, but let me.
Well, that's how it started, and then you started coming on this show as
That's right.
Philly Chris from Philly Chris on the Street.
Yeah.
And
Thanks
then,
for having me on, brother.
And then ultimately we started doing this regularly. So
Mhm. And the rest is history, ladies and gentlemen.
I've got the Philly Chris. Oh, the DC protesters. I love this one. This
if you want to
maniac
play
looking
anything.
lady.
It might be good to talk about some of the stuff on an upcoming episode or whenever, because
Yeah, like now. I mean, we got
now.
45 minutes.
Let's do it.
so-
Let's do it. All
Here,
right. Yeah.
I just put it in the.
Just watch
in the
entire
doc?
back catalog
Okay.
of
I
Chris's
put it in the
YouTube
video
channel.
chat.
You what?
The video.
Oh,
You'll
look.
need it in the. You'll need it in the doc,
helpful.
though, won't you, Russ?
I
Wow,
thought he
look
wanted
at
it
how
in the
quick
chat. Didn't
that
you say
was.
put it in the chat?
You put a link to his channel.
Yes, that's that. I correct. That is exactly what I did.
Did you have a specific video you wanted me to play? Or just this one?
If you go to videos, Chris, which one is the one where Antifa confronts you?
That's what I'm looking for now, because I think I put that in the actual title. Philadelphia. I'm scanning through them right now.
Nope, nothing for Antifa.
Why don't I go ahead while Chris is gonna look for that and figure out which one to show. We should show the video that we put together with the montage while we're hanging out.
Yeah, yeah, dude, let's do that.
You want to do that? I will find.
Yeah. Confronted by protester. Okay, this might be it here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll put
You
this
got
in the doc. I'll just put it all the way at the top, Russ. There's 2 of them. I think there's 2. This is one of them. I'll see if I can find the other while Russ plays this for everybody. Let's see here. Back to the doc. I'll just throw it right at the top of the doc so it's easier, Russ, okay?
Oh, okay.
All righty. Easier for all of us. Thank you. There it is. Okay. So, yeah, this was back from the original protests and rioting, and went down there to... What's that?
Don't lie. Don't document it. Don't document it. Freedom of the press. I'm with the press, guys.
I don't care.
Okay. I know a lot of people tell me that, but I'm not. I'm just trying to get the story out. If you guys want to share anything, I'm willing to share it. I don't like what happened either.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right on you.
Hopping a lot.
You look like a cop.
I guess so.
And it was kind of a threatening manner that they did that, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because that's not the first time they've done that to me. And part of the reason I went down there with my camera and, I had my 35 millimeter camera, phone, battery chargers. And you guys remember, I mentioned, I think I even said something on the show that I had a feeling there were going to be not only protests, but rioting and so forth. So I was trying to be ready for all that. But yeah, they did that to me once before when I was living in the city over by the art museum. And they were all laying out in the street by the 9th district over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I went over to check it out. I think I might have that on video somewhere too, because I had my phone and started recording. But I think it's a tactic they use, so to draw attention from other protesters. You're like, oh, this is a cop, and then they'll start ganging up on you.
Yeah.
Defund the police. Take this guy out. So
hey, this guy, he's
really
the
not
bad
a
guy.
good situation.
Kill him,
Right,
everybody.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
You look
thanks
like a
for
cop.
what. Thanks for
What
what
does
you
a
were saying,
cop
Liberty.
look like?
I don't know. I guess I have that look. I don't know. Yeah, and in Kensington, I get that too. Maybe partially could be the way I'm dressed, but
yeah,
I think they do it.
Maybe you
to
should take
target
that cop
Trump
uniform
supporters.
off, Chris.
yeah, maybe not stop wearing a badge.
Yeah, you couldn't see him behind the camera.
Right,
He had
right.
a hat on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not a
He had
cop. It
full
says
police
security.
uniform, and he had handcuffs and a nightstick he was twirling
Right.
around. I don't know what you guys talk. I'm a newsman.
Right. I work in the media. What are you talking about? All right, that was good, Russ.
Russ, hit
if we were
that,
talk-
the video that I posted in the.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Rita. That was very kind.
Did you say Philly Chris is an asset? Oh, asset.
Yeah.
Asset.
Well, she probably meant the other.
Wait, really quick.
Rita's like, damn, autocorrect.
What I meant to say.
I just wanted to say too with Philly Chris's videos. I think that remember Chris, we talked about that you think that they're trying to escalate it. So you're trying to you did the right thing. Most people would fall into that trap,
right?
Because they want to say, look at this crazy Trump supporter, and you went right back down. I was very impressed with that, I must say.
Thank you. Thanks. I
Psychology
appreciate
background.
it. I really have. Well, I've always really just tried to de-escalate situations because I've seen too many people, especially guys like when they're drinking. My younger years, and you're out at a bar. And they get into this match where it's like back and forth. And it's like if one of them just kind of backs away, usually things de-escalate. So I have no problem being that person.
So you're the guy to send out. And then CB said him and Harry will have your back, if anything.
Thank you. All right, let's do it. Do it live. Yeah, well, maybe we could do it discreetly. I have some ideas on how to do that.
Here we go.
Let's talk.
Doing it live.
Doing it live.
Streets of Philadelphia, folks. Coming at you live, Philly Chris, here in Philadelphia.
What do we want? Justice. When do we want it?
It was time for a change. I'm glad that we're out here today, putting God first, allowing him to use us as a vessel. I got a 1-year-old son, and there'll never be a boot on his neck. America was founded on the exact same principles. The issue is not racism by definition. Okay. The issue is prejudice.
This was a peaceful protest about 15 minutes ago.
Wow, look at all the justice.
Curfew, 8 o'clock.
Smash that up, huh?
Smash that ATM button.
That way. Move. I'm with the media. Move. Yep. There's a gun there. So I'm gonna get behind the boxes here just in case. Streets of Philadelphia, folks. Oh my gosh, look at this piano. Holy. Wow. Ah, it's a Bruno Brothers, one of my favorite stores. Feel horrible for these poor store owners. Center City, Philadelphia.
crazy. It looks
Crazy.
like a movie, right?
It was crazy being there, man. It was really surreal walking around in it. Yeah.
I sent it to this one guy who's a fairly popular conservative media host, and he's originally from the Philadelphia area. Now he lives out one of the other conservative states, and he wrote back to me. They got the Bruno Brothers, those B words. I can't say
That's
it
funny.
on the air, but
That's funny.
that was the main thing that he was upset about, I guess.
Right.
Not the
Yeah, they're
Bruno
a pretty good
Brothers.
store.
That's my favorite store.
Right. Yeah, I used to shop there pretty regularly. It's a good place. Oh, thanks, CB. That'd be cool.
Have any of those shops reopened yet?
Yeah, they're all pretty much reopened. There's a few of the smaller, like mom and pop operations, I think that, haven't come back or went out of business during the whole pandemic, certain restaurants. But yeah, if you walk down there now, you really wouldn't even know it happened, unless you were there or saw some video of it or something. So, but it's messed up for a while. There's still a few places boarded up. Yeah. But, a lot of the economic damage was done. Well, we have a good episode next week, right? We're going to have a real
next week
financial
is going to
person
be
on.
absolutely wild.
Yeah.
We've got Chris Ruggiero from Ruggiero and Company. He's an accountant. This guy is extremely, extremely intelligent. Numbers guy. He's going to talk about what's going on with the dollar, with the economy, what we can start to look out for with deficit, some things that are going on with China. And I think that if you're at all concerned about where this country is going and whether we're going to see some bad things start to happen and what you can maybe do to prepare and make sure that you're not hit like the Depression, basically. Right. And I think you need to be tuned in. It's going to be on location. So we're all going to be in the same room.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Not something that happens every week. Might be an abbreviated. I don't know if we're going to go all 3 hours because I really want to focus on quality rather than quantity.
Yeah.
Have a good discussion with him. And in order to do that, we need it to be on location. So
that's gonna be
it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Be tuning in. I would be tuning in if I weren't on the program.
Yeah, I'm going to think of some questions this week and shout out throw that out to the audience as well. If you guys, we have some great regular,
if you've got any questions regarding the economy, regarding the dollar, is the dollar going to collapse, the deficit, anything like that for our guests, let us know ahead of time. And we will make sure to ask those questions during our discussion.
And he's a CPA, right, Mike?
Yes. He's in every year. For the last many years, he's been recognized as one of Philadelphia's top wealth advisors.
Wow.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you mentioned it, I was excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Guy knows a little bit about money. We'll put it that.
Awesome.
Numbers, money, that's all his area of expertise.
Well, it's times like this in history when people either become ultra wealthy or ultra poor.
So we should probably figure out how to do the first one and not the second.
Yes.
Right?
Highly advised. Yes.
If you had to choose.
Yes.
Which one you're going with?
Right.
Yeah, so everybody think of questions. You can mail them like a carrier. You can
make sure you put a stamp.
I will commit to checking that email for your questions for Mr. Ruggiero, who's going to be on the show next Thursday. So email your questions at MikeGinTheMorning.com, and we will be monitoring that and gather all the questions. Okay.
So I did a search engine for Philly Chris YouTube.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a Philly Taco Chris.
Oh, is there?
Philly Taco Chris. We don't want people to get confused.
That's funny.
He said, one of the guys I coach with is a farmer. He said feed prices for livestock have doubled, and nitrogen, the main ingredient in fertilizer, has also doubled. The food prices are about to skyrocket.
Yeah.
So what do we do?
Stock up now. Buy a bunch of rice. Get some canned goods. I mean, it's not a bad idea.
Scalp
anyway,
it on the internet.
What if everybody starts stocking up right now, and then it's like the toilet paper?
Well,
yeah, everything's
it's
been.
gonna I think that'll happen again. I do. I mean, the hyperinflation is a serious thing, and we're having it already. It's just not, really skyrocketed, but it's about to. We'll talk about that with our gentleman next week too. But I mean,
I don't think the toilet paper thing's going to be a problem if people were smart enough to install a bidet.
Well, there you go. That's always a thought, Russ.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do promo.
Hey, and you could brush your teeth at the same time, right, Russ?
Right,
yeah,
there
with
you go.
the
You
same
put mouthwash
water.
in there.
I don't know if you would want to use mouthwash in a bidet.
Has anybody ever used one?
That might
Have you guys ever
burn.
used a bidet?
No.
No.
This is.
What is? I wasn't
see 'em, though.
looking to
I've
open
seen
a
them in some
door of
high-end
questioning.
hotels. And when I was in Italy, they had them everywhere. And I was like, "Are you supposed to sit facing the wall or away from the wall? Like, what's the protocol of a bidet?"
It didn't come with a manual.
An all-in-one water fountain, CB says.
I have a buddy who played pro ball in Japan and got real turned on to them things.
Oh yeah, really?
He's like,
Yeah.
bro, it'll change your life. It'll
Yeah,
change your life.
yeah. Well, they think we're crazy for just using toilet paper and not washing up every time. So
Yeah.
I can see both sides of it. It's interesting. You just
I love how we go from like Supreme Court jurisprudence at the beginning of the show
to talking about bidets.
To rinse your butt properly.
Well, that's
Mike
what makes this
Trolio
show
wants to know, Chris, what is a reasonably priced taco sauce?
Well, my normal mild Philly Chris taco sauce is only $4.99. You can get it on Mike G in the morning.
You know, what about
.com.
Philly Crisp mustard? Do they have Philly Crisp mustard
Oh,
on the shop?
We should brand some stuff for the show.
I know. We're just wasting time over here, not getting mustard for sale on the website.
Right. That's true.
That
But
should be
it's
the
funny.
first thing we sell should be mustard, right?
Absolutely. And it comes with a bowl.
A bowl of mustard, yeah.
It says like Mike G in the morning on it. You can have your mustard in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or your morning cereal.
Have your mustard and eat it too.
On the Mike G in the morning show, you can have your mustard and eat it too. Yeah.
Great.
You just brought up baseball. It's funny. I put a clip in the doc regarding baseball, and I wanted to ask you if this is real, Mike, with your baseball experience. Russ, if you go back to the exact same location where I put the other video links.
Or Durso, if you're available.
You know, you guys could do a better job on getting these
Durso,
links in the
if
doc
you're- if
before the show.
Durso, if you're available to control F the word baseball.
Right. Yeah, you gotta let me know if this is real, Mike. You've probably seen it. I have a feeling it's not real, but I didn't look into it. I saw it, and I was like, I just gotta put this in the doc for Mike on the show because.
Hey,
Is
Chris.
this one of them YouTube recommendations late at night? And,
It might be. Yeah.
Chris, where's the link?
Does everybody know your baseball history on the
'cause
show,
it's
Mike?
not
Have
in
you
the
shared
doc.
that in the past on the show? You've shared some of that, your baseball history.
I don't know if
Picture
we
and all.
ever got into it. I played at Oklahoma Baptist University, and we went to the NAIA World Series my senior year. And
Chris, it's not in the doc.
It is in the doc. I just saw it.
Is it at the top of the doc?
No. I said the same location, remember?
yeah, or you can control F baseball as
It's the
Durso, the new
second-
producer.
Second one down.
I literally have it in front of me right now.
Yeah, on page 6.
Oh yeah, page 6. Baseball player saves reporter. Is that it?
No, it's a video
Yes.
about a different video about a baseball player saves reporter. It's saved as we saved it as Russ dressed up like a chicken covered in duck sauce.
Hey, Mike, you remember the time I punched you in the throat? Should I remind you?
Oh, man.
Chris is having trouble breathing because I punched him in the throat, too.
I don't know. You guys are cracking me up. I'm sorry.
There's been a lot of changes this offseason for your team. How do you feel your chances are in the AL East?
I mean, I love our chances. You know, it's been
Guys, keep it on the field.
Guy has eyes in the back of his head. Holy crap.
Guys, keep it on the field.
I think it's real.
Is it real? Okay.
I think so.
I mean, it
Let's
sort of
Google
looks
it
like
right
it
now.
could have been.
Is Evan
but, yeah.
Longoria?
I didn't know if you ever saw it before. I figured if it was real, maybe you saw it or something.
Is Evan Longoria foul ball video real?
Taco party.
I think it's real.
Taco party.
It was staged. 10 years
Oh,
later.
was it? Okay.
Yeah, he told him it was real. 10 years later, Longoria acknowledged the interview that the catch was staged.
Okay.
How did the guy hit it so perfectly toward him, though? Like, that almost took out the reporter.
I think it's a fake ball in the air. Probably. It's probably some CGI stuff. Maybe CB could tell. Yeah, CB's saying fake already.
Oh.
By the way, I think if Russ
Well, it
punched
fooled
Mike in
me.
the throat, Mike's throat would break Russ's.
To date, Gillette has never publicly acknowledged that the video is staged.
Oh, okay.
Can somebody remind me of the moment in the show when Russ let out that really loud laugh? Because last time it made my ears bleed.
Uh-oh.
On my car, I had the volume turned up, and it was so loud, Russ.
Oh, my
Like,
goodness.
I don't know what you did, but I think you have to lower your volume a little.
Oh, okay. I'll just do that.
No, it's when
too
you laugh,
loud.
it's really loud. When you laugh, it like blared through the speakers, and I almost died. Not really.
Don't use speakers.
Don't die on us, Liberty. What is the other stuff
I
that
think-
ended up in the dock?
I don't know.
Oh, hold on. That was me. I'm sorry. That was.
Oh, that's
actually
okay.
something I really need to talk to you guys about that.
Let's.
I was going on Instagram, the Mike G in the Morning Instagram, and it's forcing us to take a video selfie in order to log in.
Oh.
And like it will not let us in, so I put an X over because it was saying position your face in the circle, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Like a
So-
security thing?
Maybe.
Yeah, and I don't like social media though doing that. Like, I mean, I don't know.
I thought
like, what do
Facebook
you
was
think?
supposed to end their facial recognition thing.
Yeah, that's
What?
right. They just announced that. Russ is right about that. They're supposedly going to.
But by all means, please sign in using your face.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I can't log in, so I don't know what to do. I was thinking of like putting a picture of like a zucchini or something.
That's
You could-
funny.
You could hold up the middle finger.
Might have to be a person. I did find that other like Antifa related video. If you wanted to play that, it actually comes before the other one, so it's up to you, Mike. But I'll throw it in the doc.
No,
It's
put
a
it
little
in the
bit
chat.
longer than the other one, but
How
it's
about
what
this?
happened before the other video when they
How about
started
this?
calling me
Put
a
it in the
cop.
chat.
Yeah.
Put it in the chat.
What's that?
The
Does that work
YouTube
for you? I
chat.
thought that didn't work.
Yeah, it works for me.
Oh, it does?
It didn't work like 2 weeks in a row because I didn't have a mouse for the computer. But since
Oh,
then, I
okay.
invested
Now it's working?
$10.
Okay. It's in the doc.
So you said it's
That's-
not real.
Okay.
Chris, not that chat. I said the YouTube chat.
I can't do that because
There's
I'm
got to
not.
be.
Can use the doc because I don't
Things-
have the YouTube up while we're doing the show because it's.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
can use the doc.
Thank you. We'll get this stuff figured out eventually in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, I'll figure it out next week when Darso, the producer, is
Right. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
all right. What
That's
am I
right.
looking for?
I put it all the way at the top of the doc this time, so it'd be easier for you.
Oh my god. You guys are actually all over the place.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, I'm just trying to get your story. You want to tell us what's going on, or? Thank you. I'm just documenting what's going on. Thank you.
Are those just honks in agreement or honks like get out of the way?
Mostly in agreement, yeah.
Okay.
But I was trying to capture the guy that was spray painting in front of the love statue, and then they blocked him, and then he took off. Because they work. I think I talked about this on the show before, but it's my understanding from some research I've done, they work in like little teams. You know, one guy's got the spray paint in the backpack, then the other people have the signs, and there was a guy with the digital camera, and he was taking pictures of me, and so you kind of see how they're working together.
Yeah.
And then the next video is when they were calling me a cop and all that. So.
Chris, they're not working together. It's not orchestrated.
Yeah, I
It's
know, right? It's
completely
not orchestrated at all.
spontaneous.
Yeah, it's not organized. Yeah, they're not real. Yeah.
Those are Russian robots. Okay.
Right on.
And there's no way you can dispute that.
There you go. It's been fact checked.
The Russians are known for their robots. Okay.
Elon Musk announced he's coming out with robots, human-like robots, and also a phone. He's going to release a Starlink phone. Did you guys hear about that, Russ? Did you hear about that?
I haven't heard about that.
New Starlink phone is going to go against the iPhone.
That I did hear that it's
I
going
would
to have
love
satellite.
to see that.
Well, not satellite. What is it?
It's satellite.
Is it satellite? But it's
Yeah.
Wi. You have Wi-Fi connectivity everywhere.
Yeah.
Because of the satellites.
That's right. Yeah, we talked on the show a while ago about that Starlink, the satellites that Elon's putting up, the 45,000 satellites, which will create an internet connection for a high-speed internet connection anywhere on the globe. And apparently these phones are going to tie right into that. So you effectively could have no service interruptions no matter where you are on the earth.
I would love to see
amazing.
that, because not only would that interrupt the mobile carriers, it would interrupt the iPhone and the Android.
Right.
What operating system is he?
You mind
gonna
lowering
create
your
his own
volume
thing?
a little bit, Russ?
For God's sakes.
It's a little bit loud.
Have you tried
Well,
lowering the volume
think
of your computer?
it's a good question, Russ, and I think from
No,
looking...
because you can't ask everybody in the audience to lower the volume when you talk and then bring it back up when Philly Chris is talking.
Okay,
you
I'll just make
understand?
it so I'm too quiet. How's that? Is that better?
That
Can you hear
perfect.
me now?
0 would be preferable.
Oh,
but-
okay. let's mute Mike G.
He's
Should I
fading
mute
out.
him? Should I remove him from the call?
Works for me.
Crop video. When did they add that?
I want to make sure that I recognize Liberty for her editing skills on the Philly Chris
Yes.
peaceful protest into riots video.
That's right.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
I know that took a long time,
Mhm.
and a lot of hard work because there was so much footage. I mean,
And
there
your
were
song is in there too, right? That's your song.
yeah. That was
But-
the Uncle Gary instrumental version.
Mm-hmm.
When you're editing videos, one part always stands out to you, and it was that girl who was saying, "Might as well go shopping." It was in my head for days.
Might as well go shopping.
Might as well go shopping.
That's all I could think about. No, but Chris makes it easy because he really gets the good footage, so he makes it easy.
But there's like a clear distinction between when the girl says this was a peaceful protest about 15 minutes ago. It's like, yes, was
Right.
being the key word there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because things got real bad real quick.
Yeah, it was pretty wild to be down there. It was interesting. Sad to see, really. Crazy.
Thurso says, great video work, Liberty.
Yes.
There you go.
Liberty's quite talented with that stuff. Yeah.
Indeed.
Thanks,
but
CB.
I
Yeah,
think
check it out.
we're eliciting CB's help, though.
Could always give you the
Oh,
raw
yeah.
footage, CB, if you want it.
Yeah.
I have ideas, but he's really good at putting it together.
Yeah. It's hard work, like Mike just said, how long it took you to do that. It's not, even a long clip, but you can spend hours and hours and
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
It's never ending,
Vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally
Never
respect
ending.
people who do that work because
Absolutely.
it makes it what it is in the end is the editing, really.
So what else is going on? We're at 15 minutes.
15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
Chris has a long
Do you want to
list.
watch the AIDS thing? We didn't watch.
Oh,
the
yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Bowman
Maybe we
video.
could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I
maybe
think
we
we should
could
do a
get a
watch
strike
party. You
for
guys into that?
misinformation.
We
Oh
should do a
yeah,
watch
yeah,
party,
yeah. So
when we have time. When you have time.
let's definitely we definitely need to do watch party.
Maybe
do
you could
want-
talk high level about it, Mike, and give everybody a summary on it. And
Yeah.
Then, yeah.
So basically, there's this guy, Dr. Wilner, who held a press conference. He was an outspoken critic of Dr. Fauci during the AIDS epidemic, right?
Right.
And ultimately, he had criticisms about the way they were treating HIV, and the contentions that HIV led to AIDS, and a lot of other different things. Now, if you watch this video, there are so many uncanny similarities between the criticisms that he has of Dr. Fauci and the criticisms that many people today have of Dr. Fauci during the COVID pandemic.
Right.
So usually when I tell people about this video, about what it's all about, they don't really understand that my point of sharing it is that you can watch it and look at the similarities between what he's saying and the criticisms that people have today. Because it's almost like a time machine sort of thing.
It really was, Mike. Yeah.
Right? Isn't it mind-blowing?
It is. And it's very telling, I think, of what's been going on for decades. And, on the show, I've been pretty open about my feelings about a lot of these things. And when you see things like that video, it kind of solidifies my personal belief system and some of the nonsense that's going on. How did you feel about that when you did that sort of open your eyes a little bit or change your beliefs on maybe if some of this stuff could be by design or
if you watch that video and decided to show it to somebody else, not tell them what it was about, and just show them the criticisms of Fauci, you'd be like, well, this looks like it took place in the 90s. Like the clothes are out of style and the video is a little grainy. But I could swear he's talking about COVID,
Right.
So I think that everybody should watch that video. It's not exactly easy to find, right?
No, as a matter of fact, when you sent it to me, I went back and intentionally searched for it with the complete name and it didn't come up. So like if somebody doesn't send it to you, well, other people can try that, but I tried it multiple times. Like I know I was putting it in right and it wouldn't come up. So
like Dr. Wilner video.
I wrote the whole, like if you look at what's it say for the title, Russ, so everybody knows.
I don't know, but this is on Daily Motion, not YouTube.
Oh, well.
So, I mean, that could have something to do with why you're not finding it.
No, I think you did send it to me on YouTube, though. I think it's on YouTube if somebody sends it to you. Maybe I'm wrong. I forget.
I didn't send it to anybody. I just put it in the doc.
I'm pretty sure I watched it on YouTube.
Yeah, the one you sent me, I believe, was on YouTube. And when I searched for it with the name, also he's the author of the book Deadly Deception. So he authored a book, and I think it's mentioned in the documentary.
Yes, no?
What was that?
Do we want to watch it?
It's a long video, right?
It's 4 minutes.
Oh, well, let's watch that version then, and then we could watch the full version.
Yeah, the full thing's
like
like
a watch
an hour
party
or
sometime.
something.
Yeah, get like a little taste.
All right.
Go for it.
And so I do the act of sticking my finger and create another blood brother in my life as the ancient Indians have done. And I will get another one today.
Bet that turned out well for them.
Because I'm not afraid of getting AIDS. I know as a scientist that there is nothing to fear. I know what causes AIDS. I am not going to lie to others nor myself about it. I don't like sticking myself with a needle because it hurts. And if you've ever seen my expression on pictures, you know that to be true. So, Kim Freitas. Kim, are you here? Yeah. We're going to become blood brothers. Yeah. And please, to the press and to everyone else, I don't intend to stick myself 300 times because it wouldn't prove anything anyway. Oh, and might I say that a Dr. Gottlieb, who achieved fame for being the doctor that noted the first 4 or 5 cases of AIDS, who said to me on a radio broadcast the other night, he would believe me if I took a liter of blood. That's a transfusion of blood. And I said, you know, you must be mad. What is that going to prove? If you need a liter of blood to get AIDS, then nobody's going to get AIDS.
Yeah.
In any case, well, I got to do myself first, and then I have to do you. Here, but let me do your finger, okay? I mean, I got to do you first, right?
All right.
Excuse me. Then I'm going to do me. Excuse me, I had that backwards. All right. Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like a
Gotta
magic
find-
trick, like an
This is
illusion.
a
He
heck
does
of a
it
time
the
to
wrong
lose
way,
my-
and that's why.
There we go. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a typical butterfly needle set. If somebody has a scissor, it'll help. There, I got it. Okay. It's sterile. And usually we use it to take blood by sticking this in.
Yeah, right.
And then we can inject things
I'm
also.
so glad it's sterile.
Make sure you use sterile needles
that. We
before
got
you inject
this.
yourself with the
Okay.
HIV-positive blood.
Yeah. Let me put my glasses on, okay? I think you'd rather I do that. I got to tell you a cute little story. Shortly after my son was born many years ago, he's now 40, he got some kind of an infection or whatnot, and I spoke to the pediatrician at the hospital. I was an intern at the time, and he said, go home and give him a shot of penicillin. So I took the syringe and everything home, and my wife held Bruce over her shoulder, and I grabbed his little bottom cheek, and I go like this, and I stuck it right into my thumb, so.
Careful.
You can tell I don't like doing this, never have. Okay. We want to get a lot of blood. There we go. Okay? There we go. Now, I'm wiping this needle thoroughly in this blood. And I say to my friends Fauci and Gottlieb and Galpin and Gallo and all the rest of those criminals, all right, that this is for the sake of humanity and no other reason. Oh, whoa, whoa. Thanks. And believe me, it hurts.
I like the expression on the other
And
guy's
this is in the
face.
hope
He's
that it'll
like,
save the
wow, you
lives of
really are
millions of individuals who will die because of the greatest lie ever told.
Thank you.
When they say get off the drugs.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you
And
watch
I want to
the
be clear that we're not watching this video in efforts to really have a scientific discussion so much as a historical discussion, right? Because how many people watching this were aware that this took place?
I never saw it until you sent it to me, and I was a little surprised that I hadn't heard about it.
And
from
you
somebody.
lived through it.
Yes, and I was deathly afraid of it. You know, I can sort of understand why people are so afraid of the COVID in a way, because back then I was like, oh man, I was a graduate of high school in the late '80s, so I was coming to adulthood at that time, and it was pretty scary. It affected me, actually, really.
He says that he poked himself with the same needle.
Yes, but it was sterile.
Right. I was watching closely. It looks like there's no sleight of hand there, but
Looks legit.
yeah. What's interesting? I looked into this a little more, Mike, after you sent it to me, and I think I sent you and Liberty and Russ something in the comments, like when we were texting each other, like we do throughout the week when Russ mutes us, and I found a clip of Charlie Sheen. Do you guys know Charlie Sheen no longer tests positive and officially doesn't have? Did I send that to you guys?
Yeah. That's in the doc on the same
I put
exact
it in the
page.
doc.
Yeah. Why not watch it? Interesting. But again, not a scientific discussion.
Absolutely. Like we don't know what's going on.
What we're doing
here.
is we're talking about things that historically took place, and it's interesting to compare them.
Right.
Purposes really the political commentary that we see, and for those of us listening, because he did reference something, Wilner, that was from earlier in the video that you wouldn't have understood. He said, "I'm not going to stick myself 300 times."
Mm-hmm.
That's a very specific number, because Fauci had told him, "Oh, well, in order to get infected, you'd have to stick yourself 300 times." And his response was, well, how the heck is this
right
an epidemic then? Like,
That's right.
How are you spreading it if you'd have to stick yourself 300 times?
The connection there with Dr. Fauci is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, if you need to do it
We need to
300
watch the full
times.
video.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should definitely do the watch party. I think that was a good idea, Mike.
Trying to see. And people had complaints about some of the drugs that were being used to treat it as well.
The AZT, which according to him basically is a death sentence if you were on it in those doses. That's what he said in the documentary. So, and I think the people who are doing better are the ones that went off the medicine, apparently. So, and you don't,
well, we don't know.
We don't know.
Let's not make claims like that.
Right.
But
not making any claims.
Let's see, Dr. Oz and Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Not go into that. Thank you, guys.
Is Dr.
What's that, Liberty?
Oz a real doctor?
I said just promise me that Mike and Philly Chris will not go and stick themselves with anything. Thank you. Goodbye.
If they do, don't worry. It'll be sterile.
I'll do it for 1,000 subscribers. How's that?
1,000 subscribers.
They have these brilliant ideas.
We talked about that the other day. Things that Philly Chris would do for 1,000 subscribers. He's saying that if we get 1,000 subscribers, I'll do X, or if we do 1,000, get 1,000, I'll do Y.
Right. Hey, we can challenge you.
Send in your suggestions. Send in your suggestions.
Yeah.
I told, I think I said on Locks, Loaded, and Legal that I would get pepper sprayed, like go through the drill with, we'll find one of our law enforcement officer buddies, Hatfield or something, to do what they do in the academy, because they all get sprayed in the academy.
That's right. Yeah, I'd do that with you.
Yeah. How many? That's 1,000 or 5,000.
And I would safely.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. We'll see what people are willing to do. Yeah, I know some. I'm sure we all know people who have been through that in various trainings. I know a few people in government jobs who had to do that. It says pretty nasty.
Hit the video, Ross.
Oh, okay.
I think he's playing it, but it's you having a connection.
Today, Charlie Sheen opens up about living.
I'm waiting for you guys to stop talking to play it.
Oh, okay.
With HIV.
Not like we have a talk.
Let me
show
show you a
that
little
we
chart that Dr. Huyenga and I made in preparation for this show. He's been following your blood levels of HIV. This is the viral load. And with your permission, I'm going to share this with everybody.
Please, by all means.
So back on July the 19th, 2011, you were diagnosed. You had 4.4 million of these particles that they identified.
Kind of a lot.
A lot. It's a lot. And within 6 months, as you see from this chart, it's back to normal. It's undetectable. And I want to point something out for everybody, but Charlie, especially for you. It stayed undetectable in those 3.5 years since you got it under control.
Sure.
So why would you take a risk of not taking a cocktail that seems to really be working well for you?
Well, actually, I didn't see it as Russian roulette. I didn't see it as a complete dismissal of the conventional course that we've been on. But this, I'm not recommending that anybody else do this. I'm presenting myself, I guess, as some kind of a guinea pig.
All right, so Charlie traveled to Mexico searching for an experimental treatment from a doctor I've never heard of until Charlie told me about him. His name is Dr. Sam Chachoa, and he claims to know how to cure HIV and AIDS. We went looking for information on Dr. Sam Chachoa on the internet and found a controversial and mysterious figure. He claims to know how to cure cancer and AIDS, but we couldn't track down much more on Dr. Chachoa than a couple of videos on YouTube.
It's revolutionary, it's quite new, with powers and abilities far beyond those of normal therapies.
That's a big claim. I wondered why neither my team nor I had ever heard about this therapy, or Dr. Chachoa himself. It's not easy to get in touch with him, but I did finally speak on the phone with Dr. Chachoa about Charlie's HIV status.
He's the first adult in history to go HIV negative. The conventional medicine has never done that. He was still HIV positive 5 years after he started his antivirals.
But Dr. Chachoa claims his therapeutic approach has essentially cured Charlie's HIV.
This retroviral therapy to go HIV negative, and PCR 0 is count went back down to 0 just taking my treatment.
Dr. Chachoa is not licensed to practice in the U.S. He resides and practices in Mexico, where Charlie Sheen recently visited him in his chase for the cure. So you went to Mexico.
I did.
To visit with Dr. Chachoa.
I did, yeah.
What's the treatment? What's being done?
It was a series of injections and then blood work. And again, we did see some incredible results early on.
Explain what you saw that was encouraging.
That off of the med cocktail, that I was undetectable.
HIV titers were not detectable.
Yeah. And it stayed that way. I did an experiment that was I didn't have any faith in, but I went along with it. Two dear friends that you know, they withdrew their blood. I withdrew some of mine, and I added mine to their test tubes. The blood was then incubated, cultured for 4 days, and when the results came back, all three were undetectable. So I actually sat and observed this stuff. You know, that actually happened. And if you'd seen something like that, wouldn't you have thought, okay, there might be something here?
We'll save lives today.
Is that an incredibly popular story?
How many views does it have, Russ?
1.8 million.
Huh. It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's intriguing.
I just feel like that would be bigger news if it was like, hey,
right.
Because everybody knows Magic Johnson.
Well, he does have.
Good to go, right?
I guess the thing with Charlie Sheen though is he has tiger blood.
That whole video was a tongue twister, by the way. He was like,
yeah,
Dr. Chachoa is treating Charlie. It's like, oh
right.
my goodness.
Yeah, good point.
Mr. Pfeiffer.
Cha-cha. What?
I said Mr. Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
Mr. Pfeiffer, that's right.
Pfeiffer.
Punch you in the face.
Chachoa and Charlie.
Oh, I got 5 new subscribers. Thanks, Jeremy. Cool. Check it out. Mike G in the Morning Show does have an influence online, apparently.
Yes.
Sweet.
You don't see it because the FDA doesn't approve it. That's why.
Yeah. They only
Of course.
approve things.
Jeremy says high dose. I never knew high doses of cocaine cured HIV. Yeah, they went in and they just all like tweak it out of their mind and just shot right out of them.
Yeah, if you could spend $10,000 a day on it.
Gotta get out of this body.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to learn more about that because, well, to your point, Mike, that should be bigger news, really. You know.
CB says, first time me seeing this. What is his name? His name is Dr. Wilner. Dr. Wilner. Jeremy saying, I remember in grade school they used to teach that if you skinned your knee on the ground where HIV positive person bled, you could get the virus. Don't think that's true.
Right. Yeah, I remember crazy stuff like that. I mean, there's a while back, you know, when I was in high school, kids thought you could get a kissing and stuff. You know,
we used to spend time with this family. This lady had adopted some children, and it was the youngest had gotten HIV from his mother, was born with it. And my brother got scratched by the cat at the house or something like that. And I remember my mother being concerned and calling, I forget who it was, maybe it was CDC, but they said no, the cat would have to be literally dripping with blood, you know, in order for anything to be it would have had to scratched the HIV kid, and soaked in blood, and then scratched my brother enough to get
every day for a year.
And this was back in, had to be the early 90s. You know.
Yeah.
So if they knew that, at that time,
that's a good point.
I don't know when they started pushing that information out there.
Well, you know, it'd be interesting to go back and look and see if there were people who were going against the narrative that they were silencing, because we're seeing some of that now.
That's true. So how were they kicking people off of YouTube?
Right.
and off of Twitter in the early 1990s. What was the equivalent back then?
Right.
Friendster, Yahoo Mail.
I'm going to try to talk to some
I don't
doctor
think so. I don't think that
friends
was.
about
I don't think that was even around back then.
Yahoo Mail?
Well,
That was the 90s.
It was like a stigma.
Oh, this was
Early
back in
90s.
the early 80s and stuff, though.
Oh,
yeah, this was before.
Nothing was around except for
I just remember
porn back
it
then.
becoming like a stigma. Like if you were one of the people who would ostracize somebody who had the virus because of the virus, then you were the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like they're
It's
really-
almost the opposite of COVID, right?
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some strange things.
With hepatitis C. I remember sleeping over at one of my friend's house, and her mother or somebody had hepatitis C, and I remember being afraid of the toothbrush. I think my mom had scared me about it, so I was like, I don't know. Like I was making sure I used my proper toothbrush. I don't know. It's a lot of fear out there. You know, if you don't know the facts, then you just go with fear.
Yep. Well, fear is a very powerful emotional state. You know, just seeing that now.
Yeah, we're dealing with it now.
Yeah.
The thing is, even if 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the programs and videos that got kicked off of YouTube, if YouTube is still around by then, they're just going to go into the ether of the internet. Yeah? There would be no evidence really of... Because I don't think the Wayback Machine could really... they would have to take multiple copies of YouTube, and that would just brick it probably. So I would think that anybody who was kicked off, years and years ago, that stuff's probably not around because it would have been just deleted.
Yeah.
And
well, they had a lot of control over it. You're right,
yeah.
Russ.
And unless somebody has a copy of it on a hard drive somewhere, then it's gone forever, basically.
Right.
And
that's why these cloud services are problem. Actually, a lot of companies, I know some friends in the IT industry, and some companies go out of business because they've relied too much on the cloud.
Yeah.
And they have a major problem, or they don't update their licensing in time, and they lose their company, basically. Lose all their digital data. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
I'm good.
Time changes this week. Sunday. Sunday.
Oh, the Russ PSA.
Change your clocks. Change the batteries in your smoke alarms. Check your tire pressure. Change the oil. Subscribe to Mike G.
Subscribe.
Thanks, Rita.
Thanks for tuning in. Hold on. That's all the time we've got for today. Stick around for We the People, The Constitution Matters. Pastor David Whitney, Professor Phil Duffy. I'll be joining as your legal analyst. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.